This young man is panting, completely exhausted after some back-breaking labor, gritting his teeth. He carries an incredibly heavy, large claw on his shoulder, dragging his feet step by step toward his destination. A massive beast is being butchered by a crowd, its parts carried to large transport vehicles. The team captain's voice boomed, shouting at the men. "All right, listen up. If we don't get this moved before nightfall, there's no dinner for anyone." He viciously kicked a man who had collapsed from exhaustion, while cursing, "Get up if you're not dead, keep moving." The boy carrying the large claw didn't dare slack off and forced himself to shuffle forward. His entire body trembled uncontrollably under the weight of the item on his back. That same team captain then pointed at him for no reason, berating him loudly. "Chu Yi, you useless piece of trash! What are you dawdling for? Get a move on." He forced a pained smile and replied weakly, "Yes, Captain." An indescribable determination flashed in his eyes. His name is Chu Yi, an ordinary person, just trying to survive the apocalypse. Chu Yi recalled a time before in the year 2026, when golden sunlight bathed a prosperous city. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupted in the city's center, heralding the start of the apocalypse. The world was plunged into a crisis, one that defied all scientific explanation as the entire sky turned blood red amidst horrifying scenes. It was then that giant insects burst forth from the ground, coiling around and destroying the city's architecture, a scene straight out of an insect isekai comics. They carved out countless abysses that connected to another world. From within, terrifying sharp glares flashed out, seemingly intent on destroying everything in sight. These chasms teemed with innumerable monsters, much like high-level dungeons in a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. The abysses also emitted an unknown type of radiation. A select few who were exposed to its influence gained incredible powers. These individuals possessed superhumanly strong bodies and came to be known as the Awakened. As for those who couldn't awaken to survive in this new world, they were relegated to the dirtiest and most grueling labor. Snapping out of his memories, Chu Yi returned to the present, following the line of workers hauling massive chunks of meat to the large truck. The air around him was filled with the strained grunts of the other powerless workers. "Almost there, come on, pull harder." After the long trek, Chu Yi finally reached the truck. He and another man strained to hoist the part onto the truck bed. 1, 2, heave. Once the large claw was settled on the truck, both men collapsed in exhaustion. Suddenly, a large figure loomed over him. For some reason, the team captain viciously slapped him across the face. He then began to berate him loudly. "What the hell took you so long? Stop playing the victim." Chu Yi gritted his teeth, clutching his stinging cheek in silent indignation. To his utter astonishment, one of the giant insect parts suddenly began to throw. Chu Yi's face drained of color, his eyes widening in pure terror. The aggressive captain was also stunned by the commotion before him. "There's one still alive." The insect furiously charged at the group of men. Amidst terrified screams of "Run for it!" Chu Yi and the crowd scattered. Chu Yi bolted, putting distance between himself and the enraged insect. The captain noticed his speed and shot him a malicious glare. He couldn't stand being outrun by Chu Yi. "This isn't good, I'm not going to make it." The captain scowled, gritting his teeth as a sinister idea formed in his mind. Amidst the chaos, a loud explosion suddenly went off. Chu Yi froze, staring down at his leg which had just been struck. Shot until it was bleeding, his face darkened as he reeled from the pain. Chu Yi tremblingly turned his head to look at his attacker. The captain smirked wickedly, staring him down, the gun in his hand still smoking. Chu Yi quickly collapsed from the severe leg wound, stammering, My leg." The captain cruelly sprinted past him with a hearty laugh. "Ha ha!" He viciously left Chu Yi to struggle on his own, and fled. "This is exactly what useless baggage like you is for, heh heh." Chu Yi weakly dragged himself forward, a broken man, the grim realization dawning on him. "Ah, I see. The captain is using me as bait. This will buy them more time to escape. Why I just want to survive in this game system survival manhwa. Why is it so hard?" Chu Yi trembled as he reached out, desperate but unable to, but it was no use. He cried out in frustration. Someone powerless like me was bound to be thrown away. Chu Yi refused to let his life end like this. Tears streamed down his grimy face when suddenly his eyes shot open. He realized something was approaching. A cockroach was slowly crawling onto his hand, startling him for a moment. He managed to bring his hand closer, examining the small creature. He mused, in a world of post-apocalyptic reincarnation like this, perhaps. Only cockroaches have it a little better. They can eat anything, unlike me, who has to struggle to find food every single day. Their life force is so strong, not even the radiation from the abyss can kill them. The tiny cockroach crawled across his large hand. Chu Yi looked at it and whispered, "In my next life." Just then, the massive insect loomed over him. It opened its massive, aggressive maw and swallowed him whole. He couldn't accept such an end. In his final moments, he thought, it would be nice if I could become a cockroach. In a formless void, a system's voice rang out just like in a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. The cold voice announced, "Initiating body modification. Supernatural ability evolution system activated. First reconstruction." Unveiled. Second reconstruction failed. Third reconstruction failed. Fourth reconstruction failed. 19,999th reconstruction. Success. In a dark, foul-smelling alley, only a sliver of dim moonlight pierced the gloom. Chu Yi's consciousness slowly returned. He wondered in a daze, "Am I dead?" He gradually opened his eyes, and before him was a strange, sturdy leg with only 3 digits. I'm sure I raised my hand, but what appeared before my eyes was an arm that was clearly not human. His field of view expanded. He approached a nearby cracked mirror and looked at the reflection of himself. It wasn't the human form he remembered, but an ugly, stinking cockroach. He was a cockroach. His jaw dropped and his eyes widened in disbelief as his entire body trembled uncontrollably. A contrasting image appeared in his mind's eye, a cockroach as seen by humans versus a cockroach as seen by another cockroach. His eyes bulged as he screamed at the top of his lungs, "This is me, from the depths!" Of the dark alley, Chu Yi's blood-curdling scream echoed. Oh my God, I've really become a cockroach. He was living out the plot of a reincarnated bug manhwa. He stared at his current form. This is a classic trope in insect isekai comics. Even though I have 2 extra hands and they feel like they've been part of my body since birth, I don't feel anything out of place. He turned his head, glancing nervously behind him. The only thing on my entire body that feels uncomfortable is this trapezius-like muscle on my back. The small wings on his back suddenly began to flutter, sending him into a panic. Whoa, whoa! Suddenly, Chu Yi shot up into the air, screaming in terror, "Ah!" Taking flight for the first time, he couldn't control his new wings and slammed straight into a nearby wall, crashing painfully to the ground. Ouch! Chu Yi rubbed his tiny head as he started to understand. All I have to do is slightly flex my back muscles, and the wings move accordingly. He yelled out in frustration. If I had known my dying wish would be granted so literally, like something out of those insect isekai comics, I would have asked to be turned into something else. Suddenly, a cold voice snapped, scolding him, "You insatiable human!" A system interface materialized before Chu Yi, chiding, "Are you making a mockery of the insect god's feelings?" Chu Yi stared, stunned, at the bizarre entity floating before him. The system, taking the form of a golden cockroach, continued furiously, "In the last 5,000 years, you are the first human to ever beseech the insect god for power. I was originally going to grant you the most formidable strength, but you're already regretting it." Chu Yi grinned slyly, rubbing his hands together in excitement. "Holy crap, I can't believe it." He immediately dropped to his knees to plead with the roach god. Quickly repenting, "System bro, no godfather, I was wrong, I take back everything I said." The roach god was left speechless by his whiplash-inducing change of heart, and it promptly vanished without another word. It only left behind a cold notification. System has been shut down. You are now loathed by the roach god. And a cold chill seemed to pass through Chu Yi, causing him to freeze for a moment. He couldn't help but mutter in dismay. It seems I've managed to tick off my only lifeline. For the next several days, Chu Yi sat rooted to a pile of garbage, shouting non-stop. Access system. System. Summon system. His eyes welled with tears, and his entire body trembled, overcome with self-pity. This game system survival manhwa was off to a terrible start. No matter what I try, I can't summon the system. His bizarre behavior caused the nearby cockroaches to start whispering among themselves. What's he doing? I have no idea. Chu Yi understood their words and glanced over at them. It was during this time that I discovered I could understand the conversations between the cockroaches. He remembered back to the first night of his post-apocalyptic reincarnation. He had been huddled in a dark corner, feeling completely dejected. Even though I only joked about wanting to become a roach now that it's actually happened, I still feel so disgusting. From his hiding spot, Chu Yi glanced over at a gathering of nearby cockroaches. This whole reincarnated bug manhwa scenario was they were gathered together feasting on disgusting morsels that made him want to gag, finding his own kind even more revolting. One of the roaches in the middle of its meal suddenly spotted him. It amiably picked up its foul-smelling meal and scurried over to share with Chu Yi. Hey brother, you gotta eat the dung while it's still fresh. Come on over, there's a fresh pile right here. Chu Yi was so horrified he looked gaunt, yelling to stop it. You, stay away from me. But the other roach didn't stop and moved even closer, terrifying Chu Yi to the point that he snapped and smacked it backward. The kind-hearted roach lay stunned on the ground, clearly in pain, and it trembled with wounded pride, hesitantly whimpering. You hurt my feelings, Chu Yi replied callously, without a shred of pity. My bad. Your breath reeks of dung. Maybe you could just drop dead before trying to talk to me. But by the second night, Chu Yi was sprawled listlessly in an empty lot on that dark street corner. But his new genetics were incredibly strong. I was actually starting to think it smelled appetizing. Exhausted from the prolonged hunger, he was drooling a puddle from the cravings. His vision blurred, and he was no longer in his right mind as he shot to his feet. I have to find some food. If I don't, I'm afraid I'll end up sleep-eating my way into a dung heap. He began to rummage through the nearby trash bags. This lit RPG apocalypse webtoon, of course, the sealed plastic packaging blocked a roach's senses, but it couldn't stop human intellect. Chu Yi tore open a large garbage bag. He rummaged through the trash looking for food. Based on my experience as a human, this pile of trash definitely had something edible. Finally, he found a large food package in the heap, only expired by 3 years. He joyfully exclaimed, "I've hit the jackpot!" Chu Yi couldn't wait and quickly ripped open the plastic packaging. Inside was a large moldy cake that gave him pause. Suddenly, a system notification popped up. A classic prompt from a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon, expired salted egg cake detected. Energy approximately 385 calories edible, making him recoil in disgust. It's 3 years past its expiration date. So nauseating. But his relentlessly growling stomach made him hesitate. Chu Yi quickly dove in and began devouring the massive piece of cake. Tears of emotion streamed down his face as he cried, "It smells so good." A human could never eat this, but for a cockroach it was absolutely divine. This must be the true meaning of my new life in this bizarre insect isekai comic. On the 10th night, he gazed sorrowfully at the sky and lamented, "The insect god still hasn't shown up." I thought that after becoming an insect, my life might get a little easier, but reality slapped me right across the face. This is no way for a human to live. This whole situation felt like a twisted post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Chu Yi pursed his mandibles pitifully, recalling his ordeals. I even thought about ending it all and just starting over. He recalled his failed attempts to end his roach life with a sigh. But now that I'm a cockroach, jumping off a building doesn't work. Drowning doesn't work, and even drinking pesticide can't kill me, Chu Yi thought glumly. The only way out now is to find a natural predator and let it eat me. He suddenly remembered the massive insect from before and shuddered uncontrollably, but he quickly dismissed the idea. Are you kidding me? That would be incredibly painful. I can't even stand the thought of it. After some time, he slowly began to accept his new life as a tiny cockroach. He glanced at the fat roach he'd befriended sleeping soundly beside him and mused, I should probably try to live a better life. Fortunately, cockroaches are social, and if I could rule a colony, become a roach king or something, my chances of survival would increase dramatically. This was the ultimate game system survival manhwa challenge. A fighting spirit ignited within him. Chu Yi's expression hardened with resolve. So what if I don't have a golden finger cheat anymore? With the intellect from my past life as a human, I can still live like a king. With that thought, he tapped the fat roach beside him. Hey, fatty, I can tell you've got good bones. How about you follow me? The fatty was unimpressed and turned away coldly. You're not even fast enough to get the fresh stuff. Scram, his words left Chu Yi speechless. Chu Yi suddenly grew pensive. He realized that to rule the cockroach world, it didn't matter if he was living well. What mattered was whether the other insects perceived him as living well. It all clicked into place. He told himself once more, looks like I need an opportunity to prove myself. On the 26th day of his new life in this reincarnated bug Manhwa, that opportunity arrived. In a dark corner of the street, a group of burly-looking roaches stood imposingly announcing to the smaller ones below, "Starting today, our platoon is moving to a place with more food. If you can't keep up, you can stay here and wait for our enemies to finish you off." Their words sent the weaker roaches into a panic, and chaos erupted as they cried out in fear. Faced with this devastating news, they all started crying, "Boo-hoo-hoo, there's no more poop to eat." Only Chu Yi scowled in disgust at the pathetic roaches around him. "You're the worst squad of roaches I've ever led. You refuse to raid the trash cans every day just wanting to eat and then wait for a fresh drop." The more the fatty thought about it, the more resentful he became. "I'm scared to go outside." Chu Yi couldn't take it anymore and quickly shut him up. "Shut your mouth, you're getting on my nerves." He looked around, observing the other roaches' attitudes, and couldn't help but sigh. Everyone seems terrified. Are roaches supposed to be such homebodies? The burly roaches up above were losing their patience. One shouted, "Is anyone going to volunteer to go first? Don't just hang your heads, speak up." In unison, the smaller roaches cowered in fear. They remained silent, not uttering a single k. Chu Yi crossed his arms, judging them not even bothering with this pathetic swarm of insects. "I don't rely on your garbage to survive anyway." Suddenly, a system notification popped up, catching his attention. The cockroach god said, "If you accept this mission, I might consider forgiving you." This made Chu Yi freeze, breaking out in a cold sweat. After a moment of thought, Chu Yi bravely raised his hand to volunteer. Standing amidst the crowd of weakling roaches, Chu Yi declared loudly and clearly. Full of determination, he said, "I will volunteer to lead the way." His courage left the fatty completely in awe, staring at him with admiration. He said to him, "Damn, boss, you're so brave." Internally, Chu Yi was ecstatic that the system had suddenly returned. "Hell yeah, my cheat system is finally back online. This game system survival manhwa is about to get a lot easier." Sometime later, Chu Yi and the fatty were cautiously hiding in a bush. Gazing at the massive dam, he scouted the area and exclaimed, "The mission is just to cross this huge dam." "It's so quiet, seems pretty simple, right?" The fatty, terrified, loudly retorted, "What do you know?" He then began to explain the mission in detail. Whenever an area runs out of food, the big roaches send the smaller ones to scout for a new place to settle. He imagined the scene. The danger they were about to face, where they would always encounter giant insects staring at them hungrily. He trembled uncontrollably. But in this post-apocalyptic reincarnation world, our enemies are everywhere, so the survival rate for the scouting party is extremely low. He suddenly warned in a loud voice, "We could be wiped out at any moment." The fatty's words made Chu Yi scream in horror, "Isn't this just a suicide mission?" Then he fell into deep thought about the sudden appearance of the system. Is the cockroach god tricking me, using my death to appease his anger in this twisted, reincarnated bug manhwa? Not letting the to get him down, he shot to his feet and shouted aggressively, "Screw it, let's just retreat. I have a way to get us full stomachs." But the fatty didn't react to his words at all, instead trembling even more in terror. A massive figure appeared behind Chu Yi, aiming a death glare at him, but Chu Yi was oblivious to the danger. He just questioned the fatty in confusion, "What's wrong?" The large roach suddenly spoke its menacing growl, terrifying Chu Yi. "Where do you think you're going?" It glanced towards the nearby dam and continued, "Cross this dam, and you'll find plenty of monsters for a grand feast. First come, first served." Chu Yi timidly turned to look at the massive roach, marveling to himself. Roaches have evolved to the point they can eat monsters from another dimension. This lit RPG apocalypse webtoon is insane. This means I'll never go hungry again. His eyes welled up with tears as he put on a pitiful expression and pleaded with the large roach, "I've been trying to lose weight recently. You guys go ahead and have dinner. Don't save any for me." The large roach fell silent, seemingly pondering something without replying. Then suddenly, its arm, dashing forward like the flash of light, it grabbed Chu Yi by the neck, lifting him high and warning, "If you don't scout ahead, you'll all become our dinner." Under its powerful grip, the tiny Chu Yi trembled uncontrollably, his heart filled with silent rage. Even after being reincarnated as an insect, can he really not escape the law of the jungle? This is the harsh reality of this reincarnated bug manhwa Part 2. Chu Yi recalled a scene from his past life with a surge of resentment, a bitter reminder of his post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Back then, because his team was, he remembered the burly manager shouting a warning at them back then. "You're all a bunch of useless mouths just sitting around waiting to die," he had yelled, justifying his shameless actions. "Sending you out to find food is a reward, a chance for you to survive." His next words were no different from what the giant roach was telling Chu Yi now. "You should thank me for giving you this chance to live." With that said, it violently slammed him to the ground. Not stopping there, it flew over and pinned him down with its leg. Chu Yi was pressed so hard he couldn't move, able only to tremble with rage as he stared at the aggressive giant roach. This current helplessness only fueled his determination. He has to get his cheat ability back. In a world that operates like a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon, it's his only path to power. His eyes filled with bloodshot veins of just becoming an insect that can eat anything is not enough to survive in this brutal game system survival manhwa. He screamed with conviction, "I must become stronger." A moment later, unable to resist the giant roaches, Chu Yi's group of weaker roaches was forced to cross the dam. Chu Yi led the weaker roaches, moving cautiously through the darkness. He gave them a stern order. "Brothers, spread out and move up. If you sense any movement, signal a warning immediately." He frowned, slightly annoyed, shoving the fatty's leg away. "Fatty, don't stay so close to me." The weakling fatty burst into pathetic tears. "Wait, I'm scared." Chu Yi broke out in a cold sweat, his gaze sweeping over the dam ahead. He carefully observed the surroundings. "This is strange. This isn't even near a river, so why are there breakwater rocks here?" Hiding in the bushes, the two giant roaches watched Chu Yi's group. One of them suggested, "Boss, they're already halfway up and there's still no movement." "Let's go up too," the other agreed and stepped forward aggressively. "Right, we can't let these grubs get to the good stuff first." It loudly rallied its underlings to fly quickly toward the dam. "We'll fly straight over there. Even if there's an enemy, it'll attack those grubs first, ha." Chu Yi shivered, muttering angrily as he saw them fly over his head. If you can fly so well, why make us scout the path?" He cursed the larger roaches for bullying them with their power. "These bastards!" Suddenly behind him, those abnormally large rocks began to tremble. Sensing the strange movement, Chu Yi turned to investigate. A massive bloodshot eye was staring right at him. Chu Yi was so terrified by the sight that he froze for a long moment. With tears of fear welling in his eyes, he stammered in horror, "These rocks, they're giant frogs." This reveal felt like a scene straight out of the most terrifying insect isekai comics. Staring at the delicious prey before them, Chu Yi, they're using their color to camouflage themselves as stones, waiting for prey to fall into their trap. Drenched in sweat, Chu Yi desperately looked for a way to escape. The other cockroaches were already crying, having accepted their fate. The giant frogs, no longer able to wait, shot out their long tongues to snatch their prey. Chu Yi yelled a warning to his comrades, "Run, split up, run, fly," but the ill-fated cockroaches couldn't escape quickly, becoming a tasty meal for the giant frogs. All the roaches were swiftly devoured in an instant. Suddenly, after days of silence, the system pinged with a notification: natural predator encountered. Extracting biological data. Mutated amphibian frog. Its leg muscles are highly developed, allowing it to jump a distance of up to 20 times its body length. Its tongue can shoot out at a speed of over 13 feet per second to target prey. The tip is covered in sharp barbs and the tongue itself is coated in a paralyzing mucus. Weakness. It cannot clearly perceive stationary prey. The chubby kid, terrified, stood frozen in place, crying and unable to move. Sob, sob, sob. "Mommy, I'm going to die." What do I do after receiving detailed instructions from the system? Chu Yi shouted orders to the others. Don't move. They can't see things that are standing still. Just stay put and don't move a muscle. Then after a long absence, the cockroach god, a central figure in this insect isekai comic, suddenly appeared. It presented him with a choice, pointing out a path and offering option 1. It would reveal a safe path to escape the danger, describing a future where Chu Yi gains a loyal subordinate who would protect him on his path to glory. Option 2. Save a single cockroach, and in doing so accept the path to becoming the cockroach king with that roach as his first loyal underling. Faced with the two options, Chu Yi carefully considered his choices. How can I become this cockroach king if I can't even stay alive? Of course, before he could voice his decision, the pathetic sobs from behind him broke his concentration. Sob, sob, sob. The chubby kid was cowering between two large boulders, crying his eyes out in terror. Sob, sob, sob. He trembled, looking at Chu Yi with pleading eyes. Big bro. Seeing that look reminded Chu Yi of his past life, a core element of this post-apocalyptic reincarnation story, where he was just as weak, pleading with his own ruthless team. Ah, I remember now. Back then he had reached out, hoping the others who were fleeing would notice him. The one thing I wanted most. The one thing I didn't even dare to dream of wasn't to be turned into a cockroach, as everything began to fade from my vision. At that moment, I was so full of hope. His eyes welled up with tears, remembering his desperate desire to be saved. I just hoped someone would turn back and help me just once. Recalling that agonizing moment, he couldn't help but reflect, even in the apocalypse, even in a life or death situation, the cockroach. God grew impatient and coldly urged Chu Yi, starting a countdown for his choice, 5, 4, 3. But Chu Yi was still lost in thought. I still long for... He had made his choice. He shot forward like an arrow, thinking, someone to come and save me. Ignoring the danger, Chu Yi strained to fly up and pull the chubby kid away. You damn fatty, you eat too much crap. You better lose some weight for me later. The chubby kid was moved beyond words, tears and snot streaming down his face. Big bro, I love you, Chu Yi yelled back at him. Shut your mouth. Your breath is making it hard for me to concentrate. As Chu Yi struggled to fly away with the chubby kid in tow, they both suddenly froze, staring at the scene before them. A giant frog had its mouth wide open, waiting for them to fly right in. Chu Yi was stunned, breaking out in a cold sweat. He was incredibly tense. A glint of determination flashed in his eyes, and in the next moment, he quickly threw the chubby kid to safety. The chubby kid turned his head and screamed in panic. Big bro! Chu Yi was snapped up by the giant frog's gaping maw. A cold, mechanical voice echoed from the system, a key element in this Litty RPG Apocalypse webtoon. The system will now unlock for you. As the system notification appeared, the frog that had swallowed Chu Yi suddenly began to swell, activating the Devour All Things trait, a game changer in this reincarnated bug. Manhwa. Acquired traits. Sticky tongue, mutant frog's leap. The frog's body trembled in terror before it suddenly exploded, splattering a bizarre fluid all over. The system, a staple in any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon, chimed in again with a special reward. A human foot drenched in that slimy fluid slowly descended. Chu Yi appeared in his former human form. Following the system's notification of human form reconstructed, a smile returned to Chu Yi's face. This time he was in human form. Seeing that he was no longer a cockroach, a classic trope in insect isekai comics, Chu Yi grinned from ear to ear. He was as happy as a kid, stretching his arms and jumping for joy. Ha ha ha, I'm back, baby. But you'll notice he still has 2 cockroach antennae on his head. Just then, the roach god system materialized beside him. Appreciative of Chu Yi's compassion, the deity announced, even in a moment of despair you held onto your righteous heart. You are worthy of becoming my successor. Hearing that familiar roach-like voice, Chu Yi looked up, startled, and thought to himself, a successor. The roach. God's successor. Still horrified by his form from just minutes ago, Chu Yi pointed to his own face and resentfully demanded, Huh. You mean I have to turn back into a roach? The roach god system remained unfazed. It pointed to the sky and declared with great pride, "Roaches are the indestructible ones. And the indestructible are immortal. Since you're immortal, why get hung up on your physical form?" Just when he thought he'd escaped that default roach setting, it dawned on Chu Yi. He panted, realizing the catch, and mumbled, "Boss, can you put that in simpler terms? I wasn't great at literature." Clearly having lost all patience with this guy who was pushing his luck, the roach god chewed Chu Yi out. "It means that even in human form you'll possess the power of immortality, you idiot. What a sweet deal." Chu Yi reconsidered, stroking his chin. "So that means..." Without a care for his naked body, he started skipping around, letting out a huge, "Yes!" "I don't have to turn back into a roach." The roach god system was also quite pleased. It stood beside him and praised in a gentle tone. "It's rare to see someone who wouldn't abandon a comrade just because it's an insect. You're a good one." But just as the roach god finished its sentence, a loud splat was heard under Chu Yi's foot. His toes quickly recoiled. The system looked down and froze completely, staring intently at Chu Yi's foot. Chu Yi's face went pale with fear. He stammered with a forced laugh. "Ha ha ha, feels like I stepped in some poop." Lifting his foot, he saw the chubby roach. Chu Yi had accidentally stepped on it, crushing its body into a bloody mess. It died on the spot. Chu Yi screamed in horror, "Fatty!" The roach god was beyond furious. It tensed up and roared, "You useless fool! Home! You just crushed the very comrade you saved. The author really knows how to play with our emotions." Chu Yi felt as if he'd plunged into an abyss of guilt. He bent down, his hands trembling, not daring to touch the flattened roach. Chu Yi's mind raced in disbelief and panic. "Wait a minute, in this reincarnated bug manhwa, I only got my human form back because I saved Fatty, and now I've just crushed him. The system isn't going to turn me back into a roach, is it?" He could feel the roach god's piercing glare on his back simmering with rage. A chill ran down his spine as sweat poured off him like rain. Chu Yi tried to calm himself down, thinking, "Stay calm. Stay calm. In this game system, survival manhwa success or failure depends entirely on your acting skills." The roach god system was seeing red, cursing him out. "You really are an idiot. How could I have been so blind as to choose you as my successor? I'm going to..." But how could Chu Yi let this chance at a post-apocalyptic reincarnation as a human slip? Holding the flattened roach in his hands, he clutched his head and let out a heart-wrenching wail. "Fatty!" Seeing this mournful display, the roach god behind him crossed its arms, a contemptuous sneer spreading across its face. But how could Chu Yi let this chance slip? The light of his humanity flickered out again. Holding little Fatty's limp body, he clutched his head and wailed in utter despair, "Ah, little Fatty!" The roach god, a bizarre guide in this insect isekai comics world, watched from behind, crossing its arms and curling its lip in utter contempt. And it didn't stop there. Chu Yi continued his dramatic performance of self-blame, pounding his chest repeatedly as tears streamed down like a waterfall while he howled. "Oh heavens, how am I supposed to go on living? I raised little Fatty with my own 2 hands, nurtured him until he was this plump, and now I have to see the young die before the old." Not stopping there, Chu Yi continued to sob pitifully, thrashing about on the ground in anguish. "Oh, fate, are you mocking me? Just take me with him. Without my sworn brother, how can I possibly survive?" Unexpectedly, this whole act actually swayed the roach god. Although it found Chu Yi a bit unsettling, it thought to itself, so their bond was actually that deep. I've misjudged him. After coming to a decision, the roach god snapped its fingers, projecting a system window, a classic feature in any game system survival manhwa, and announcing, "Stop crying, little fat." The roach god elaborated, "To be precise, it can never truly die." The system window displayed an image of the fat cockroach, the loyal companion in this reincarnated bug manhwa, along with its stats. The roach god added, "It is your imperial guard." At the roach god aggressively pointed down at the swarm of mutated frogs, shouting, "You are the king. As long as you are immortal, it can be resurrected. Just kill some of these mutated monsters to gather enough energy and it will be revived." Hearing these lit RPG apocalypse webtoon rules, a towering Chu Yi rose up from no longer seeing them as an obstacle. Now the creatures were merely the size of his palm. He finally understood the situation. A smug look spread across Chu Yi's face as he glanced around, thinking, well, speak of the devil. It seems I can't spare these frogs after all. Now Chu Yi reached for the green frogs like a terrifying titan. He let out a hungry puff of air and declared, "Today I will make this swarm of frogs forever remember the terror of being dominated by humanity." But one should never underestimate the keen instincts of a frog. With a single glance from its lowered eyelids, it instantly knew Chu Yi's intentions. In a flash, it sprang onto his enormous arm, charging straight for his face. Chu Yi awkwardly turned his head. Wha? Only to get a solid slap across the face from the frog. Our boy's face was contorted and bright red. The frog's eyes were filled with utter contempt. A mutated frog indeed, one slap was enough to instantly bruise his face. Chu Yi was furious, clenching his fists to crush the frog. He gritted his teeth. "Look at you think you're Captain Levi or something. Trying to take down a titan, are you?" Just then, the roach god system suddenly issued a warning. "Be careful, you can't touch these mutated frogs. Their slime is corrosive." Still stunned, Chu Yi opened his hands. The green frog's slime clung to his hands, eating away at his skin like acid. In moments, Chu Yi's hands blistered and began to bleed profusely. He trembled. "It burns!" Chu Yi frantically shook his hands, his whole body swaying as he cried out, "Pain, pain, pain, pain." A fat frog was standing right in front of him. He was startled. The frog's eyes were now wide open, staring intently at Chu Yi's swaying little buddy. It must have mistaken it for a small, wiggling worm. Acting on instinct, the frog opened its mouth wide and shot out its tongue to snatch the prey. Its long red tongue shot out like a whip. Thwip. The frog's tongue wrapped neatly around Chu Yi's family jewels. Taking a direct hit, Chu Yi shrieked, his soul leaving his body as his limbs convulsed. Only the fellas in the audience can truly understand this soul-crushing pain. Chu Yi instinctively shot up, flailing around like a fish out of water. He inadvertently flung the frog up into the air along with him. Oof! It took a whole lot of effort to finally get it off. After pulling the frog's nasty tongue from his proboscis, Chu Yi shivered and winced. Ouch! It seemed he was about to lose to a bunch of frogs, a pathetic start for the hero of a reincarnated bug manhwa. Chu Yi turned to whisper to the cockroach god system, "Hey boss, I can't beat these mutant frogs." Dissatisfied with Chu Yi's performance, the cockroach god immediately snapped, "Nonsense. The mutant frog is using its traits to fight, but you're not using any of your own. You're just flailing around randomly." Thinking he didn't have any special abilities, Chu Yi's jaw dropped as he asked, "My traits." Answering Chu Yi's question, the cockroach god picked up a frog and continued irritably, "The trait I bestowed upon you is called Devour All Things. If you eat it, you can steal its traits. Eat it, and you'll gain its antibodies. The more monsters you eat, the stronger you'll become a core mechanic in any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. Devour all things, and you will become a god." As a former human, Chu Yi was terrified of this mutant frog delicacy. He waved his hands dismissively and asked, trying to sound cool, "For real, can I at least cook it first?" Ignoring Chu Yi's plea, the cockroach god system shoved the frog straight into his mouth. "Swallow it." As the whole slimy frog slid down his throat, Chu Yi desperately craved power. But the moment his tongue touched the mutant frog, tens of thousands of taste buds sent an This thing was indescribably disgusting. A second later, Chu Yi gagged, "I really can't do this." Chu Yi bent over and retched everything up. The cockroach god crossed its arms, visibly annoyed, then pointed at the swarm of frogs squirming at Chu Yi's feet. "If you can't do it, you're going to get logged out of existence, a harsh reality in this game system survival manhwa, because you're already surrounded by mutant frogs." Only then did Chu Yi realize the frogs had closed in, swarming and clinging to both of his legs. He was utterly stunned, scared stiff. They weren't just on the ground, they were also leaping up to attack from above. Having just gone through a post-apocalyptic reincarnation, he was still weak. He could do nothing but scream helplessly. The frogs began to overwhelm him, their slimy limbs and bellies covering everything, leaving only a single tear-filled eye visible in his anguish. His mindset shifted. This is wrong. Who am I to be picky? In my past life, I worked myself to the bone, and I couldn't even afford a proper meal. With this realization, Chu Yi mustered all his courage, opened his mouth wide, and chomped down on one, screaming. Now that food is practically jumping into my mouth, what am I complaining about? Chomp! He finally bit down on a whole mutant frog. The sound of its bones crunched loudly. And just like that, Chu Yi's mukbang began, and a series of system notifications immediately popped up. Devour all things has been activated, detecting creature's traits. Acquired trait, corrosive mucus. Acquired trait, frog leap. Acquired trait, enhanced muscles. Chu Yi immediately began to use his newly acquired traits, a power-up scene, straight out of the best insect. He started jumping around excitedly, completely ignoring his naked body. He was ecstatically enjoying his new skills as joy and excitement surged through him. He then put on a handsome and benevolent expression, turning to the swarm of mutant frogs and saying gently, "Your traits are useless against me now. It's my turn." Having just acquired his new skills, Chu Yi immediately put them to use on the very creatures that gave them to him. He casually swung his fists and kicked his legs, sending frogs flying in every direction. Just like that, the stark-naked Chu Yi kicked and punched with skillful proficiency, yet with a gentle and affectionate touch, all without a single wardrobe malfunction. A few seconds later, frogs rained down from the sky all around him. With his back turned after beating just a handful of frogs, he arrogantly declared in a narcissistic tone, "They say it's lonely at the top." But before he could savor his victory for long, a pair of bright headlights from an approaching vehicle suddenly lit up his front side. And just like that, Chu Yi's little buddy was put on full display. The light was blindingly bright. He shielded his face, squinting to see a convoy of large armored trucks pulling up right in front of Chu Yi. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker. "Captain, we've spotted a naked pervert doing something indecent." "It with the frogs. What are your orders?" Hearing human voices. Chu Yi was so moved he was on the verge of tears. He reached out and called to them. "Fellow humans, are you here to save me?" In a crushing response to Chu Yi's hope, the commander in the vehicle heard this and immediately gave an order. "Take him down!" The words were like a dagger to Chu Yi's hopeful heart. Instantly, his body was riddled with tranquilizer darts. Chu Yi stared in bewilderment at his body being attacked. To give a bit more context, just a few minutes before the armored military convoy had stopped and blasted him with their headlights, Chu Yi had struggled to shield his eyes and make out the large characters on the front of the lead vehicle. Chu Yi recognized it instantly, exclaiming in his mind, "Is that the extermination squad?" Now, he slowly lowered his hand to get a clearer view, thinking to himself. In his past life, a key detail in this tale of post-apocalyptic reincarnation, he'd heard others mention every member of the squad was a Tier 1 elite who had awakened, a common trope in any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. They were tasked with exterminating monsters lurking on the surface and in the abysses, and also with monitoring and handling any new abysses that emerged. They also maintained security and order around the cities. Rumor had it that people living in cities under the extermination squad's protection could live peacefully, almost as if it were After being lost in memories of the past, Chu Yi's eyes widened as if he had just discovered a new path forward. He continued his train of thought. Encountering an extermination squad patrol way out here, doesn't that mean... Believing they would be willing to help him, his eyes filled with hope and naivety, and he joyfully yelled out, "Fellow humans, are you here to save me?" The response to Chu Yi's eager anticipation was the of a tranquilizer gun. He thought he was being saved, but no. His body was riddled with the tips of tranquilizer darts designed for animals. Chu Yi looked down, not believing his own eyes, staring down at his chiseled six-pack abs as his naked body fell spread-eagled in the glare of the large headlights. Several armed soldiers disembarked from the truck. One soldier, leading two of his subordinates, stepped out. They cautiously advanced, carrying rifles and equipped with heavy-duty protective gear. The leader touched his comms device, issuing a command, "Lock on target." "Prepare for capture." The plan was to quietly haul Chu Yi's body away, but unexpectedly the drugs hadn't fully kicked in. He reached a hand up. The leader was startled and immediately commanded, "Wait, hold your positions." Just a moment after collapsing, Chu Yi managed to prop himself up again. He reached a trembling hand forward. He looked to be in a state of extreme exertion, and the soldiers froze in their tracks. A system panel popped up just like in a game system survival manhwa. Muscle elasticity. Ability to freely control every muscle fiber in the body, allowing for flexible evasion of all attacks. At this moment, Chu Yi's body was like a thick piece of rubber with regenerative properties, almost like the protagonist of a reincarnated bug manhwa. The needles embedded in his flesh were immediately pushed out. Tink tink. 1, 2, 3, and then a whole cascade of them fell off. The puncture wounds from the darts also healed over in an instant. Realizing that there was more to Chu Yi than met the eye, that he wasn't a normal person, the 3 soldiers immediately switched to a combat stance. The 3 of them fell into formation, raising their rifles to aim as their leader shouted, "Hostile target!" All units engage combat positions. The situation escalated quickly. Chu Yi immediately raised his hands in a gesture of peace, completely bewildered by the situation, and cried out, Whoa, hold on guys, I'm not a bad guy, just listen to my explanation." And yet, the commander paid no attention to Chu Yi's words, maintaining his firing stance as he growled coldly, "Take aim, open fire." Just 1 second before he could send Chu Yi to the afterlife, a voice suddenly shouted, "Halt!" The soldiers immediately took their fingers off the triggers. The lead soldier, startled, turned to look. The owner of the voice was a beautiful girl with flawless white skin and full. This purple-haired girl calmly gave an order, "Take him alive." She leaned against the side of a large vehicle, looking fresh in a stylish outfit that showed off her long, fair legs and an impressive bust. The soldiers under her command immediately replied in unison, "Yes, Captain," seeing that the extermination squad showed no signs of backing down. Chu Yi, still keeping his hands raised, cursed in frustration. "What the hell is this? Don't these people understand? Plain language." Suddenly, the sound of engines roared as tires screeched against the nearby ground. From the front, a few more motorcyclists sped towards Chu Yi. As he stood there awkwardly, 2 of them kicked up some dust and began circling him. He was surrounded by the group, who watched him warily. In this brutal post-apocalyptic reincarnation, they treated Chu Yi like a wild beast to be captured. They pulled out ropes, swinging them to build momentum. A knotted rope flew through the air, followed not by 1, but 4 more ropes from 5 directions, ensnaring both his arms, both legs, and his neck. The target was now set up for a brutal attempt at drawing and quartering by motorcycle. 5 riders in 5 directions revved their engines and sped off simultaneously, pulling the ropes taut to their brake. With all 4 limbs and his head being pulled in different directions, he screamed in agony, gritting his teeth. Chu Yi couldn't stop groaning from the immense pain. Every muscle fiber in his body contracted as he struggled to keep his limbs from being torn off. This was a true test for someone from a reincarnated bug. Chu Yi had become much stronger, but even his enhanced body had limits. He struggled to focus and called upon his divine snake system, a classic feature in any game system. Immediately, the system displayed a notification. Corrosive mucus can be secreted, a layer of slime characteristic of a mutant frog covering the skin's surface. It possessed extremely powerful corrosive properties. His eyes were glued to the info panel, a determined frown forming on his face. As he realized what he had to do, he clenched his fists tightly. Chu Yi began to secrete a green, acidic slime right where the ropes bound him. The ropes immediately began to corrode. The purple-haired girl watching from a distance noticed this and tilted her head for a better look. In just a moment, the ropes snapped all at once. The sudden release of tension backfired, sending the riders tumbling heels over head. Chu Yi landed safely, his body completely intact. Watching his display of power, the female captain found herself coveting his unique abilities. She ran a sharp fingernail over her lips. Her eyes filled with interest as she stared at him, curious. "Is he an awakened one too?" "Get him!" Chu Yi ran for his life with 4 men hot on his heels, stubbornly determined to capture him. He ran blindly ahead when a blue-haired man suddenly lunged and wrapped his arms around Chu Yi's waist. The soldier was in for a surprise. Chu Yi's skin was covered in the green slime, a bizarre ability straight out of an insect isekai comics, allowing him to easily slip out of the blue-haired man's grasp. Not only that, but even through his gloves, the skin on the man's hands was corroded, burning with intense pain. He stopped his pursuit, watching Chu Yi's completely bare figure disappear into the distance. "Damn it," he said. "How interesting. We can't just let him get away that easily." The brown-haired soldier behind him stomped on the ground, launching himself forward. This guy was incredibly fast, using the leap to instantly appear right behind Chu Yi's neck. His face was shrouded in shadow with only two brightly glowing eyes visible. Yi glanced back in alarm, stretching his legs even wider to sprint away as they tried to bring a club down on his head. However, Chu Yi's lightning-fast reflexes allowed him to expertly change direction, dodging a blow so powerful it cracked the ground and sent chunks of rock. It didn't stop there. This guy's agility was no joke. The moment he looked back, he saw the man swinging the club right at him again. Chu Yi panicked, unsure how to react. Swish. In an instant, a heavy blow swung right at Chu Yi's temple. Immediately after, guided by his powerful instincts, Chu Yi arched his back, bending at a near-impossible 360-degree angle. Chu Yi gritted his teeth. In a classic game system survival, Manhwa trope, his only hope of escape was to rely on the system again. But this system always waited until he was at his wit's end to show up. Chu Yi cried out in his mind, "Where's my golden finger system?" The system's two golden hands appeared right before him, activating the frog jump trait. It was incredibly fast. He gathered his strength and leaped just like a real frog, and the jump covered a good 30+ feet. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. The two soldiers stood dumbfounded, watching his naked body vanish in an instant. Even he couldn't believe he was capable of such a feat, a power befitting the protagonist of an insect isekai comics series. Our Chu Yi stared at his hands in amazement, thinking to himself, "It worked." Looking back, he saw he had left the extermination squad far behind. Chu Yi panted and chuckled triumphantly. He then started skipping along, spreading his legs wide with each jump, gleefully shouting a challenge as he ran. "You still think you can catch me? Ha!" Suddenly, his entire body was yanked backward. His rhythm broken, his mood shifted to panic as he quickly looked down at his feet. That's what he got for celebrating too early instant karma. Chu Yi's leg was ensnared by a purple thread brimming with powerful energy, and he was slammed painfully to the ground. It was the purple-haired captain, all the way from atop a vehicle in the distance. With a single point of her finger, Chu Yi was caught in a web-like thread. She leaned back casually, propping herself up with one hand, and said, "What did you really think you could get away?" Tisk. Chu Yi was utterly terrified. He clenched his jaw in pain, unable to believe the woman was so strong. In the speaking, reincarnated bug Manhwa, she was treating him like just another insect. The woman decisively yanked the thread, causing Chu Yi to lose his balance and fall flat on his back. The pain was so intense, he cried out, "Ouch!" The woman then pointed her fingertips again, shooting 10 spider-like threads toward Chu Yi, each one composed of countless smaller filaments woven into a thick cord. Long, large, and thick, they wrapped around Chu Yi's lanky body, binding him almost completely. He looked utterly bewildered. Then she vanished like the wind, leaving only a cloud of dust and a blurry streak in her wake. A second later, her foot was pressing down on Chu Yi's face, grinding it into the dirt. She called out to the soldier behind her. "How many is that now?" The blue-haired soldier replied immediately. "Reporting, Captain. This is the 11th one." A moment later, with Chu Yi secured, the woman hopped onto a nearby motorcycle and revved the engine. Wrapped tightly from head to toe, looking just like a silkworm cocoon, the unfortunate Chu Yi was dragged along the road by the captain, brutally tormented. He cried until he had no tears left. "Please, please spare me." The entire extermination squad convoy followed their captain back. From a distance, Chu Yi's desperate screams could still be heard. "Help me!" The convoy moved farther away, heading deep into the city, a grim reality in this lit art. A while later, the scene shifts to the extermination squad's base inside the city. The place was surrounded by massive walls to protect people from monster attacks. The convoy finally came to a stop before the large base gate. They were fast. quickly announced over the loudspeaker for those inside to hear, "Captain Aaron has returned, open the gate." The purple-haired girl known as Aaron maintained her composure, speeding toward the slowly opening gate. Aaron even said not to open the gate too wide, to prevent monsters from taking the opportunity to sneak in. Chu Yi could only scream and run inside, while Aaron skillfully tilted her bike, then turned to look at Chu Yi with a mysterious smile. A second later, she yanked the handlebars, whipping the bike around, and the rope pulling Chu Yi swung with the momentum, slamming him around erratically. Chu Yi screamed like he was about to meet his maker. And so they arrived at a room with a sign that read, "Extermination Squad Prison." He was finally given clothes and looked much better in a prisoner's uniform. Aaron led the way while Chu Yi was sandwiched between two scientists, still not understanding their intentions. He clicked his tongue and lamented, "Is being naked a crime in this post-apocalyptic reincarnation? Don't you think that's a bit much, my beautiful ladies? I'm just an honest, harmless guy." But the women walking with him thought otherwise. The short-haired female scientist spoke up, surprised. "Oh, so this naked man can actually talk, quite different from the previous 12, isn't he?" Aaron immediately grew serious, her voice low. "Don't let your guard down. In the past week, 12 unidentified refugees have appeared, all of them naked, and they only know how to giggle foolishly without speaking. Although standard tests show they're normal humans, the feeling they give off is one of intense inhumanity." The woman with the high ponytail next to Chu Yi suddenly snapped back in frustration. "Why don't we just log them out permanently and be done with it? Why all the trouble?" In response to this, the short-haired woman beside her calmly explained, "If we execute people just for having low intelligence or an ugly appearance, how are we any different from the monsters out there? Enough talk. We'll have the results of the gene test tomorrow." Hearing their conversation, Chu Yi slowly began to understand. He guessed, So I was captured just because I happened to resemble those 12 weirdos. This whole situation feels like a twisted lit RPG apocalypse. Suddenly a thought struck him. His eyes widened as he screamed internally, "Wait, there's a gene test too." Panicking, he immediately asked his system the very thing that made his life a real-life game system survival. "Manhwa. Hey, cockroach. God, are they?" Summoned, the cockroach god system immediately appeared and asked, "What's a gene test?" Hearing its naive question, Chu Yi instantly knew the outcome. It was like he'd fallen into the abyss for a second time. Our protagonist, trapped in this reincarnated bug manhwa, cried without a sound, "I'm so screwed." Ding! And the three women led Chu Yi to a large sealed room. They walked down a long corridor. One of the two female scientists warned, "Whether you're a genuine pervert or an accomplice of the previous 12, you're going to sit quietly in here for me today." With that, the short-haired scientist turned around and saw that the prisoner chairs were shrouded in darkness. She let out a surprised, and asked, "Why are the lights off?" She continued asking when she saw only one person sitting in a chair. "Did you already move the others? Why is there only one person left here?" The long-haired scientist was completely baffled. "No, I didn't. Wait, that's right. Where are the other prisoners?" Looking closer at the man in the chair, he appeared gaunt and was motionless in the shadows, looking incredibly eerie. Aaron glanced around warily, while the others also kept looking around, trying to find where everyone else had gone. Over to the side was a man's body, but his head was abnormally swollen like a balloon, nearly 10 times its normal size, a sight worthy of the most gruesome insect isekai comics, as if they'd burst at the slightest touch. Witnessing this grotesque sight, the faces of Aaron, the two female scientists, and Chu Yi all drained of color. Looking up, their eyes widened at the horror that appeared before them, and a cold sweat broke out on everyone's brow. The long-haired scientist spotted the things floating near the ceiling, and Chu Yi unconsciously blurted out, "What are those things?" Above them, several prisoners were suspended in midair, their heads suddenly swelling up like helium balloons, drifting back and forth over the group's heads. The 4 of them were too stunned to react, simply staring upwards in disbelief. Moreover, their heads emitted horrifying laughter, both male and female voices mingling in the air, their faces ashen like corpses. Behind Chu Yi, the man who had been motionless suddenly began to groan. A chill ran down Chu Yi's spine, and his face went pale with fear, sweat pouring down his face. Then the man suddenly convulsed, his entire body shaking violently. His face was shrouded in darkness with only 2 glowing dots visible as he let out continuous beast-like growls. He then tilted his head back, revealing a bald scalp that was... He flashed a grin full of cracked teeth, his expression dazed and his pupils glowing brightly as if his very soul had been siphoned away. Ha ha. Picking up from the last chapter, the head began to expand before exploding like a balloon, its thin layer of skin tearing into shreds. Inside was a mushy red mass with strange clusters, and worse, it was covered in countless eyes packed tightly together underneath, revealing 3 rows of razor-sharp demonic teeth. Its form was a nightmare made real, something you'd expect from the darkest post-apocalyptic reincarnation story. It let out a loud noise, causing Chu Yi and the long-haired scientist to whip around in surprise, their eyes fixated on the bizarre creature. The monster could be a creature straight out of a lit RPG, expanding rapidly as it sprouted numerous long red tentacles that all shot forward in a vicious attack. Its many eyes stared wide and unblinking. The massive monster, a grotesque fusion reminiscent of a reincarnated bug manhwa antagonist, possessed a muscular humanoid body 10 times the size, with countless long tentacles sprouting from its back. It let out a long shriek as it snatched Chu Yi and the 2 female scientists. With his hands bound, Chu Yi was helpless. Screams echoed through the room, leaving only one prey yet to be captured. It pointed a bright red tentacle toward Erin, but the spunky girl bravely stood her ground against the monster. Without a hint of panic, she took a defensive stance. Her reflexes were no joke. In a flash, she dodged the monster's red tentacle, causing it to miss. She leaped away, a blur of motion from above as Erin extended a hand, revealing 5 sharp claws. She was supremely confident in her own abilities. In fact, Erin seemed rather thrilled to be facing such a formidable monster. She said, "So this must be your true form." Meanwhile, the short-haired scientist caught in the monster's grip was panicking. Suddenly, large boils like swollen nodes erupted all over her body. They formed into grotesque clusters that even spread to her face. The woman trembled uncontrollably as she looked at them, feeling her strength drain away as the boils grew more numerous. She touched her face and screamed, "Oh no!" At the same time, Chu Yi was also panicking from the sudden affliction. He stared in horror at the boils scattered across his body. My God. What is this? The Divine Overseer system. A classic feature in any game. You've been parasitized. This is the kind of threat you'd see in the goriest insect isekai comics. Quickly swallow its spore, or you'll turn into a zombie. Chu Yi was still reeling from the shock, lacking the experience to handle a situation like this. Now facing Erin, the grotesque monster roared, "I want to devour your body." While it held the 3 captives suspended in the air, it released clouds of red parasitic spores toward Erin, still stood her ground, showing no fear. The girl glared at the monster, murmuring, "Huh, it can talk. Interesting. I've never seen a creature like you before." She then let out a slight smirk. The 2 female scientists were now almost completely under its control, gradually losing consciousness, and Maya acting against their will. The long-haired scientist, while the short-haired one snarled at the sky like a wild beast. The monster planned to use the 2 women as weapons against Erin. Realizing its intent, Erin shot a thick purple thread from her hand straight up toward the ceiling. As the 2 controlled female scientists lunged at her, the end of her thread latched firmly onto a high beam, just as she'd planned. Erin quickly swung herself high into the air, using the thread's pull, neatly dodging the collision with the 2 infected scientists. Her superhuman agility and speed were no joke. Realizing this hideous creature would be tough to handle in this post-apocalyptic reincarnation, she grit her teeth. She thought to herself, dealing with these parasitic types is such a pain. I can't just rush in and attack it carelessly. Besides, she didn't have any magic crystals on her, so she couldn't use her full abilities. After a moment of thought, Erin glanced at a shelf below. She did a double take, her eyes locking onto something. On the shelf were several surgical scalpels and medical instruments. Making use of anything she could as a weapon, Erin shot another thread down to grab a scalpel. She thought, it's not like I'm out of options. The moment the thread made contact, it stuck stronger than superglue. While still suspended in midair, Erin gathered her strength and used the power of her purple thread to hurl the scalpel forward at high speed. Its sharp tip pointed straight at the monster. She focused intently. 2 of the horrifying monster's many eyes managed to track Erin's movements. It narrowed those two eyes, looking on with full alert, squirming amidst the lumpy brain-like flesh covered in tiny pustules. Instantly, the monster launched a counterattack. It swung two of its tentacles back in a whipping motion. This thing wasn't just disgusting. It was intelligent. It used the two humans in its grasp as hostages, moving the female scientists in front of its mouth as a shield. It bared its teeth as if mocking Aaron with a challenging grin. The young woman was startled when she realized its wicked intention, but she quickly regained her composure, her glare at the monster intensifying with rage. She hastily grabbed the thread to pull it back. Aaron pulled and pulled until the tip of the surgical scalpel stopped just inches from the wide round pupils of the female scientist. Just then, the monster, still gloating from its last move, glared provocatively at Aaron and said, "Weak human." Above it was still holding Chu Yi tightly. The protagonist of our king reincarnated bug Manhwa struggled continuously against its grip, trying to pull at the shackle on his— "Wait, hold on, slow down." Chu Yi was still busy stuffing his face with the red pustules from its body, noticing their speed. He cried out in alarm, "Is the speed of its parasitism faster than the speed I can eat?" The divine cockroach, a classic sidekick in these insect isekai comics, urged him on, "Hurry up. Stop whining and swallow that stomach sack already." Gulp. He struggled to swallow the horribly tasting things. Chu Yi clenched his jaw to keep from throwing up. The parasite's blisters had already covered almost his entire face, and then, like a scene straight out of a game system's devoured parasite stomach sac, acquired parasite resistance trait, parasite resistance enhanced, parasite resistance at 10%, parasite resistance 35%, parasite resistance 46%. This Litty RPG Apocalypse webtoon system was really paying off. Meanwhile, learning from the werewolf's knife-throwing technique, Aaron brandished 4 razor-sharp surgical scalpels, her tone steely, and her expression utterly annoyed, retorting to the one who was cursing at her. "Me." After she spoke, Aaron's aura flared even stronger. The young woman whipped her hand to the side and 4 surgical scalpels fanned out, slicing through the air. They shot towards the coward, who only knew how to hide behind his hostages. The useless thing was pulling the same old trick again. The monster once again held the 2 female scientists in front of it as a shield, cackling with glee. "Oh, that's useless against me." Now, Aaron held up her 10 sharp fingertips, wiggling them continuously as she channeled her power to control them. She gave a slight excited smile, having figured out the creature's true nature. "Oh, is that so?" she replied. 2 of the scalpels split off in different directions. Just as they were about to hit the 2 scientists, they suddenly changed course, swerving around and past the women. The 2 scientists' conditions were worsening. Both were unconscious and immobile. The monster was caught completely off guard by Aaron's feint. Its multiple bulging eyes widened as it watched the 4 scalpels now homing in on its own flesh. Unable to react in time, it let out a piercing shriek. In a move straight out of an insect isekai comic, Aaron's spider silk latched onto another scalpel, sending it in for the finishing blow. The blade shot straight for it. Chunks of flesh were carved from the monster's head by Aaron's scalpels, sending blood flying everywhere as it took several powerful hits. The scalpel's attack range was too close, leaving it with no choice but to brace for impact. It's not just about raw power, you need superhuman intellect to counter it. I've successfully seized the advantage, Aaron thought, glaring at the monster. Just as I thought. Its main body isn't strong enough, so it needs hosts for protection. She thought she just had to wait for the monster to collapse. However, it was tougher than Aaron had anticipated. Whenever the monster took damage, the 2 female scientists suffered the exact same injuries. They were tormented, screaming in agony. In a classic boss mechanic you'd see in a lit RPG Apocalypse webtoon, it had transferred all the damage to the hosts it was parasitizing. The monster put on a smug expression again. Caught off guard by this tactic, Aaron glared in frustration as the realization hit her. She was completely bewildered by what she had just witnessed. It was a truly hideous and cruel monster, casually threatening her with a relaxed and willing demeanor. Its speech was still garbled, not quite human. "You hurt me. I will transfer it to others." As it spoke, the stab wounds on its body healed rapidly, leaving no trace. This creature, a true nightmare from a post-apocalyptic reincarnation scenario, was unlike. A sense of unease washed over her. She thought in frustration, what a ridiculously annoying ability. But it didn't stop there. The monster had another surprise in store for Eren. It pointed a crude finger at Eren's face and rasped, "Ha, you've been infested by us too." The creature's parasitic miasma began to take effect. In a terrifying debuff straight out of a game system survival manhwa, her arm was taken over by the parasite, which continuously activated its powerful ability. She looked down at her own. Despite resisting with all her might, Eren couldn't control her own arm. "I can't control my hand," she cried out in fear. The tables had completely turned. Eren could only watch helplessly as her own hand tightened around her throat. Her attempts to resist were futile against the monster's overwhelming power. Eren's face contorted as she struggled to draw each ragged, whispering breath. Witnessing its opponent slowly suffocating at her own hand was the monster's greatest pleasure. The pupils in its many eyes dilated to get a better view of its prey. Its mouth gaped open, emitting a terrifying voice. "I won't give you the chance to purge the infestation." But then the monster's expression suddenly changed. It glared down with displeasure. Despite struggling to breathe, Eren's lips curled into a smirk. The blister-covered, parasitized hand, a horrifying sight in this reincarnated bug manhwa, slowly began to loosen its. Commending her sharp, timely response, Eren uses the spider silk from her other hand, looping it around her slender thigh to gain leverage and pull back her compromised arm, slowly breaking free from the assault. As she struggled to resist, Eren spoke, "I'm glad I'm the one who fell into your trap. If it were any of my teammates, you would have killed them for sure." As she spoke, Eren tightened her grip on the silk, pulling harder. The threads, pulled so taut they nearly snapped, began to glow with a purple energy. Eren added, "My silk can also be used to manipulate an enemy's body." Eren's controlled hand was turning a deep purple, fighting back against the silk that gripped each of her fingers tightly. This petite yet incredibly strong girl continued to speak in a firm voice to the massive monster. "And of course, before that, it can be used on myself." Eren stared intently at the creature, making it clear she wasn't someone who could be easily overpowered. With a twitch of her first 3 fingers, the silk threads recoiled, and Eren began manipulating a new object for her assault, a surgical scalpel that flew back to her with a smooth, effortless whoosh. With a series of slashes, Eren controlled the small blade, making it cut continuously at her hand, which was still under the monster's parasitic control. Now the outer layer of skin was completely gone, with blood dripping profusely. Yet Eren maintained a completely calm demeanor, showing no signs of pain as she said provocatively, "What a shame it's all over now." The monster, furious that its attack had been thwarted, arrogantly taunted Eren back. "Indeed, but next time." It kept the 2 girls positioned as human shields, its grotesque body hiding behind them as it threatened, "You're bleeding out and have no strength left to fight." Then its massive eyes loomed closer to the 2 unconscious girls as it growled with dangerous fury, "If you try to run, I'll kill them and then escape myself." Eren despised its arrogant attitude. It was utterly vile and despicable. She wished she could send it straight to hell that very instant. Her eyes locked onto it, she barely contained her fury. "Ha ha, before you die at my hands, even if you get down on your knees and beg me, I will show you no mercy." With the focus entirely on Eren and the monster, everyone had forgotten that Chu Yi was also captured and suspended in the air, when suddenly a continuous rumbling sound echoed from above. Puzzled, the monster fighting Eren glanced up to check it out. It was only then that it realized it had been unable to control Chu Yi from the very beginning. The monster's eyes widened in shock. "I can't control him," it thought. It quickly devised a new solution. "Then I'll just have to log this guy out first." Acting immediately on the thought, the monster compressed its tentacle into a sharp point like a giant needle. The manipulated tentacle shot straight for Chu Yi's throat. He hastily blocked with his handcuffs, but they shattered instantly. He struggled frantically, just moments away from being finished. Sheer terror filled Chu Yi's eyes. He'd faced life and death many times, but each encounter was uniquely terrifying. Chu Yi was sure he couldn't dodge it. This is it. The situation was dire, when suddenly strands of purple spider silk appeared swirling in front of him. He froze in surprise for a moment. What's happening? Whoosh! A stream of energy shot past at high speed. In the blink of an eye, using only one hand, Eren gave the silk a powerful tug, pulling a stumbling Chu Yi toward her. Being violently pulled like this for the second time, Chu Yi was scared to tears. He screamed his head off as the monster stared wide-eyed, watching Eren snatch back the hostage. She could rescue him so easily precisely because it couldn't control him. The red-brained monster said nothing, remaining silent. Pulled along by the silk, the lucky Chu Yi landed and slid to a stop right between two traffic light poles. Eren looked on, satisfied. One person saved. He was still reeling, screaming his head off with his eyes squeezed shut. When things finally settled down, Chu Yi cautiously peeked his eyes open. He had landed in a rather compromising position. Wincing in pain, Chu Yi struggled to say, "Thanks for saving my life." Suddenly, Chu Yi's face flushed beet red, and a torrent of blood started gushing from his nose. Getting a peek at the goods in a situation like this was certainly an experience. Chu Yi, filled with gratitude, exclaimed, "Thank you, my goddess." Looking down at the pervert who was lost in his own little fantasy, Eren was completely speechless. Her bangs shadowed her irritated expression, making her want to beat him to a pulp. She immediately yanked Chu Yi up by his collar. With a menacing look, Eren shouted, "Don't you have some kind of mutation ability, or are you just a garden-variety pervert?" Chu Yi quickly tried to calm her down, struggling to explain. "Hey, big sis, I've been telling you this whole time, you just wouldn't believe me." She let Chu Yi go for now, but the monster was still the immediate threat. Eren stepped forward and said, "Since that thing can't use you as a host, I have two plans." Eren's personality was incredibly strong, a stark contrast to our boy Chu Yi. She stared intently at their objective and laid out her options clearly. "Plan A, we both die here. Plan B, I hold off the monster while you get out and call for backup." Eren then added with a smirk, "You can even dance on my grave later if you want." What a gallant woman. Chu Yi's expression was conflicted. He was clearly taken aback by Eren's resolve. "Joe!" Yi gritted his teeth, looking determined as he weighed Eren's two options. Finally, he took a decisive step forward and announced, "I choose C." He strode past Eren with an air of confidence, leaving her completely stunned by his response. However, she quickly regained her composure and asked sternly, "Huh? What do you mean, C?" She had been dead serious, expecting Chu Yi to make a choice, and figured a shameless pervert like him would choose to run for his life. But that's not how our Chu Yi operates. He cracked his knuckles and said through gritted teeth, "We team up and smash that damn worm fungus to pieces." Eren's expression immediately showed a flicker of interest. It seemed her opinion of Chu Yi had improved slightly. She asked, "Oh, and may I ask why you're so eager to die?" Chu Yi was silent for a long moment. He didn't say a word, but his eyes burned with unwavering determination and courage. From behind, Eren watched him, a small smile playing on her lips. Chu Yi's mind flashed back to his death in his previous life, a classic tale of post-apocalyptic reincarnation. But no one was willing to save him. And now there was no way Chu Yi would let that same tragedy happen to someone like Eren. He stood tall and declared, "Because the one thing I hate more than anything are cowards who abandon their comrades to save their own skin when facing a monster. People like that are worse than the monsters themselves." Chu Yi's words forced Eren to see him in a completely new light. She smiled, satisfied with his fighting spirit. Out loud, however, Eren said something that kind of killed the mood. "Are you a brave young man or just a complete idiot?" Though inwardly she thought, definitely an idiot. She crossed her arms, giving him a wry smile. With his trusty system backing him up, it's no wonder our boy was talking so tough in front of a pretty girl. It's a classic game system survival manhwa, he thought smugly to himself. Actually, the great and powerful system already told me that the monster's main body is incredibly weak. As long as you're immune to its parasitic abilities, it's a total pushover. With this achievement under my belt, I'll definitely secure a safe spot with the extermination squad, haha. The monster, however, was getting seriously annoyed, waiting for these two to make their move. It was getting antsy all over. It started flailing its limbs wildly, roaring and cursing. Humans thinking about impressing the opposite sex, even in the middle of a fight. What an inferior species. Just go and die. This enraged it, sending it into a berserk state, as its power peaked, its tentacles growing longer and more numerous. The monster slammed its limbs up and down, creating a powerful shockwave as a writhing mass of parasitic bacteria rushed toward Chu Yi and Eren. Both were stunned by this surprise ambush. Chu Yi charged forward bravely, only to awkwardly turn back and ask Eren, "Don't you know how to control bodies too? Hurry up and control me so I can fight." Eren remained calm and didn't answer. She clenched her fists tightly. Chu Yi added, "I'm not afraid of parasites, but I don't know how to fight." Just as he finished speaking, Eren unleashed a newly mastered sweeping technique. From a rather handsome young master, she spun a full 360 degrees, releasing threads of spiritual energy from her fingertips. Narrowing her eyes, Eren said with a smile, "Hey, just a heads up, I can't guarantee your safety." Using Chu Yi's body as a puppet, numerous threads attached to his hands, feet, neck, and head, turning him into a marionette. They quickly connected and familiarized themselves with his every cell. Eren leaned forward, raised her hands, and wiggled her fingers, completely focused on the entity before her. A smug and determined smile crept onto Eren's lips. Standing in the middle of the hallway, Eren spread her legs wide to get her footing. She thrust her hands forward, shouting, "Go!" Instantly, Chu Yi ran like the wind, taking long leaps toward the monster, a classic scene from a game system survival manhwa. The two female scientists had been completely possessed by the monster, their eyes a milky white, devoid of pupils. The monster's tentacles flooded down, paving a wide path and wrapping tightly around them, using its parasitic ability to control them to fight Chu Yi. "You can't even dodge my tentacles." The moment their bodies were about to clash, the monster gloated, continuing to boast, "How could you possibly break through my battle matrix?" The very ground beneath him was a trap it had laid. Eren's 5 sharp fingers moved nimbly, controlling Chu Yi with masterful skill. Over here on top of a piece of the monster's flying epidermis, his feet made hard contact to gain momentum. At the critical moment, he twisted his body in midair and cleanly grabbed the scientist's neck. Using the rebound force, Chu Yi prepared to deliver a finishing blow. The plan failed. The controlled scientist was pulled back, causing the attack to miss. Chu Yi also landed to stabilize himself. Now the girl, having lost all reason, screamed unconsciously. This was just the opening act. Eren also twitched her fingers, and Chu Yi immediately reacted. He was controlled to dash forward at an incredible speed, becoming a blur to the naked eye, a power-up straight out of a lit RPG apocalypse. It was Eren controlling Chu Yi, making him slide under the scientist's legs. He lay prone, his body scraping against the monster's red, parasite-infested skin, a horrifying sight reminiscent. He successfully dodged a blow from a tentacle. Quickly planting his sturdy hand on the ground, Chu Yi skillfully kicked his legs up. He confidently glanced back with a slight smile. Behind him, the 2 female scientists continuously failed to grab him. The other one lost her balance and nearly fell. Chu Yi zipped past the 2 meat puppets on the perimeter, simply running straight toward the monster. The closer he got, the thicker and denser the layer of parasitic viruses became. The monster tensed up and roared in confusion. "What? How did you get so much faster?" It narrowed its many eyes to get a better look, angrily realizing that Eren was the mastermind. This kind of evolution was common in stories of post-apocalyptic reincarnation. "That woman is controlling you, from the back all the way out there." Eren waved, even putting on a friendly, provocative display. "How cunning." The girl laughed heartily. "Ha ha." After this expression under Eren's control, Chu Yi clenched his fist. He leaped at the monster. It immediately took a defensive stance, tensing its outer muscles. In the moment before they clashed, it was clear this was a massive beast, a true boss from a reincarnated bug. For his opening salvo, Chu Yi roared with all his might, "Die!" as the monster's fleshy epidermis tensed up. It retaliated by releasing a cloud of parasitic viruses. However, this was useless against our boy Chu Yi, who in this tale of post-apocalyptic reincarnation, now buffed with Eren's combat skills, he fearlessly charged in to attack, forcing the terrified monster to hastily shield its vulnerable head. It resorted to psychological warfare, sneering, "You're far too weak. You'll never break my defense." He clenched his fist, his eyes resolute, smirking at his target. Chu Yi gritted his teeth and lunged forward with everything he had. Suddenly, a notification from the game system survival manhwa popped up, announcing a trait activation. Elastic muscles activated. Chu Yi's massive fist began to secrete a green slime, a product of his mutated X trait. He cleverly combined his own trait with Aaron's skill to quickly take down the monster. The system panel, a staple of any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon, chimed. It announced, "Corrosive slime activated." The punch then slammed directly into the monster's gut, the force so immense it shook the entire area. The monster took the full brunt of the attack, staggering backward from the shockwave. Chu Yi pressed his advantage, pouring more power into the strike. An immense pressure enveloped them. The attack inflicted excruciating pain, and the many eyes of this beast, straight out of some insect isekai comics, widened in disbelief at Chu Yi's strength. It let out a blood-curdling scream. Aaron, who knew the limits of her own skills, was completely stunned by the outcome. Her eyes widened in bewilderment as she thought to herself, "Whoa, was he hiding another power all this time?" The flesh at the point of impact began to sag and decompose, melting a hole straight through the monster's abdomen. It raised its arms high, its body convulsing in agony. The monster stared bug-eyed at the gaping hole in its stomach, its body trembling uncontrollably as it stammered, "Decomposition? Impossible. How can it be this strong?" Chu Yi withdrew his fist dust swirling at his feet. His eyes, like those of a true protagonist in a reincarnated bug manhwa, were blazing with intensity. He stared intently at the result of his own courage and determination, his focus unbroken. Seeing Chu Yi's expression, the monster felt its spirit break. It struggled to maintain its form, yet it still retorted confidently, "This isn't over yet. You can't kill me, I can transfer the damage." A moment later, after repeatedly trying to activate its trait, it realized the pain hadn't subsided. Its largest eye darted down, filled with utter shock. The monster was completely flabbergasted, stunned into. It looked down for a better view. The hole in its abdomen was still there, and in fact it was slowly corroding and growing larger. The monster shrieked. "Why is the wound still here?" Looking over, it realized that at some point it hadn't noticed. Aaron had successfully freed the two young female scientists and was gently laying them down in a corner. In her hand, Aaron held a grotesque handful of sacks that looked like a cluster of hairy marble. Blood dripped from her hand as her eyes locked onto the monster. "So sorry," she said, "but I've already taken out all of your parasitic stomachs." The two rescued scientists were thankfully still conscious, though they were struggling, taking deep, ragged breaths. Aaron clenched her small fist, crushing the pulpy stomachs. Blood splattered everywhere as she applied more force, completely obliterating them until nothing remained. Aaron opened her hand, turning to face the monster with a mischievous and challenging smirk. I can't wait to see what you'll look like as a scientific specimen." Aaron's triumphant taunt struck a nerve, deeply wounding the monster's pride. It glared down at her, its irritation written all over its face, but it remained silent. A green fluid began to ooze from between its teeth. Its massive, foul jaws clenched tight as it ground its teeth, radiating a menacing aura. The parasitic virus was instantly released, and the human head balloons above reacted, gnashing their teeth and growling in unison, emitting a series of eerie sounds. The large floating heads grew bigger and moved more violently. The pressure built up until it was too much, and the heads exploded in midair, spraying a thick mist of blood that diffused into the atmosphere. The scene was truly horrifying. No one could have predicted this monster had so many gruesome tricks up its sleeve. Chu Yi and Aaron looked up in utter astonishment, their expressions changing. In an instant, the ease from a few minutes ago completely gone, replaced by deep concern. From the red cloud in the air, the creature absorbed everything back into itself to regain energy and regenerate. Chu Yi stood stunned by its actions and shouted, "Is the blood reconverging?" This monster's form developed strangely. It became enormous and pitch black, revealing a single glaring red eye as its figure began to change, leaving only a dark silhouette with a gaping hole in its abdomen. Aaron and Chu Yi were intensely focused on its every move, their eyes locked warily on this formidable target. They both shared the same feeling, a mix of fear and excitement for the new challenge, which felt like a classic boss phase 2. All they could see now was a massive amount of red slime constantly moving like an ocean wave, surging and churning like a raging fire. Now this amorphous slime began to gradually calm down, stretching out and taking a definite shape. A moment later, a mass of slime appeared before Chu Yi and Aaron, spreading over a wide area and looking like a great blaze. However, this mass was a monster that would not be easy to deal with, and it stared intently at Chu Yi and Aaron with two brightly glowing, ravenous eyes. After a moment, the previously amorphous pile of goo had successfully transformed into a new, solid body. Just one of its muscular red arms was a world apart in size compared to Chu Yi. The monster was back and even more formidable than a few minutes ago. It opened its wide maw full of sharp teeth and let out a deafening roar. Its body was more developed than before. It had become a monster built for powerful direct combat, no longer fighting with psychic abilities. Aaron and Chu Yi's expressions hardened as they watched it warily, the corner of Chu Yi's mouth twitching uncontrollably. Its head with its once vulnerable brain was now thoroughly encased and protected, and this time it possessed 4 glowing eyes. The monster spoke with confidence and excitement. "You are the first humans to ever witness this form of mine. I hope you don't disappoint me." After these words, its glowing red fist swung with incredible speed toward Aaron's face. Just a moment ago, Aaron was quite far away, proving just how fast this terrifying monster was. Only now, realizing the danger, Aaron's eyes widened in surprise, as she had to admire it under her breath. So fast. In the few ticks it took for that thought to register back in real time, Aaron was sent flying dozens of feet. The young woman was launched by a knockout blow. The massive monster was still in a defensive stance, having delivered a hit so powerful it felt like it could trigger a post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Her back slammed straight into the wall behind her, sending shattered fragments flying as Aaron cried out in pain. "So strong!" Seeing his teammate taken down in an instant, Chu Yi, the hero of our reincarnated bug Manhwa, looked over at Aaron in a panic, so stunned by the monster's new strength that he was left, his mouth hanging open, frozen. Slammed by the shocking blow, Aaron was not about to give up. She grit her teeth in frustration and glared at it, thinking, how is it on a completely different level? This power jump is straight out of a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. Its speed was no joke. She had barely a moment to think about getting up before the red hand was lunging at her chest once again. Still reeling from the shock, Aaron was hit by another devastating blow. The creature swiftly grabbed her by the head, its body weighing hundreds of pounds, pushed forward with immense force, grinding her against the floor. Aaron's face was slammed hard into the ground, and she squeezed her eyes shut in pain, bracing for the worst. From a wider angle, the monster's attack was utterly vicious. It dragged her across the floor, the force carving a long gouge into the concrete. Just moments before, Aaron had boldly challenged the monster, and now it was teaching her a brutal lesson. Not letting up, the monster then leaped up, slamming her down onto the ground like a sack of garbage. The impact was so powerful it sent shockwaves through the area. For a second time, Aaron's back was smashed violently, leaving her utterly helpless like a rag doll being toyed with at the monster's whim. Blood immediately spewed from Aaron's mouth, and her eyes rolled into the back of her head as her expression grew gaunt. After relentlessly torturing Aaron until she could no longer fight back, the creature finally paused. It stood silently over Aaron's barely breathing body while she lay curled up and trembling in the crater it had made. She looked absolutely pathetic. How the mighty have fallen. The monster lowered its face and boomed, "Was it you who struck me earlier?" It then turned its 4 eyes, glancing over to its next target, Chu Yi. With a chilling expression, it added, "Or was it you?" Chu Yi understood this monster's intentions. He frowned, thinking to himself, "This is bad." Chu Yi was at a loss, unsure of what to do. In a split second of indecision, the monster was already right in his face. Our protagonist was caught by its horrifying speed. The creature's massive crimson body lunged forward, its legs swinging in a long, bright arc as it delivered a devastating kick straight to Chu Yi's face. He coughed up a spray of blood sent tumbling from the force of that single blow, a seemingly fatal strike. Chu Yi crashed hard onto the ground in no better condition than Aaron. Dust and debris exploded into the air. Chu Yi was sent flying right next to the long-haired scientist. His limbs were mangled and every bone and joint in his body had been shattered. He lay there a broken mess like a lifeless puppet. As Chu Yi fell unconscious, a notification from the game system survival. Manhwa's interface popped up. All bones shattered, internal organs completely destroyed, fatal damage detected, immortality trait activated. This was the kind of lit RPG apocalypse webtoon update All damaged bones are now regenerating and recovering. Immediately, the bones in Chu Yi's foot began to twist and snap back into place, powered by the system's recovery energy spinning rapidly as they reset to their normal positions. Once the process was complete, Chu Yi's eyes snapped open in shock. He gasped for air and then yelled out, "I'm dead, I almost died for real this time." Then his system guide appeared, shouting a warning, "Don't move. This isn't like your post-apocalyptic reincarnation do-over. I can't guarantee I can save you if you take another hit like that." Hearing this, Chu Yi grew even more terrified. The situation was chaotic, and he was panicking with no idea how to respond. So thinking fast, our hero decided to just lie there and play dead. He squeezed his eyes shut tight. If he couldn't see anything, it wasn't happening. He thought to himself, that's right, just play dead. Even with the special traits he gained in this reincarnated bug Manhwa world, his physical strength and skills were still far too weak. Chu Yi could only count on Eren now. He cautiously cracked one eye open to glance at her, thinking, "Come on, big sis, you have to win." As the dust settled, the monster from this twisted insect isekai comic became visible near Chu Yi's position. It stood with its legs apart, fists tightly clenched, aggressively observing Chu Yi for any sign of movement. But our boy held his ground, not daring to twitch even a muscle. The creature, straight out of an insect isekai comic's nightmare, curled its lip into a sneer, baring its teeth in triumph. "So weak, just too weak." Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from behind it, startling the monster. It turned around curiously. It was the sound of Eren, who was somehow still able to fight. Seizing the moment while the massive beast was distracted, Eren launched a flying kick at the nape of its neck, her eyes sharply targeting its brain. But the monster spun around, the afterimage of its movement a blur. It had moved too fast, completely reading Eren's attack. The monster snatched the girl's small leg mid-air. Caught off guard, Eren was thrown into a panic, dangling helplessly as her eyes widened in shock. She clenched her teeth, her mind reeling in disbelief. How is this possible? To Eren, the monster's speed made her feel as slow as a butterfly, a common power gap in any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. Its 4 eyes glowed with power as it used one of its massive, crude arms to swat Eren to the ground. The small girl, now nothing more than a toy in its grasp. Eren could only gasp out a few words in hopeless pain. Grabbing one of her legs, the cruel monster began to swing her back and forth, slamming her from side to side repeatedly. Poor Eren was being brutally thrashed. She was just too weak compared to the beast, forcing her to endure one blow after another. Growing bored of that, it threw her into the air, smashing her against the ceiling and tossing her around like a ball. Eren was toyed with until her body was completely battered. The last throw left her stuck to the ceiling, her face and hair hanging down limply, while blood streamed endlessly from her body. Seeing Eren so utterly broken meant that Chu Yi's last glimmer of hope in this grim post-apocalyptic The monster left Eren for a moment, ripping out the very chair she and the 2 scientists had used to restrain its parasitic host body. Holding the chair, it stared at it and sneered, "You bound me with this." As it finished speaking, Eren's body finally peeled off the ceiling and began to fall. The monster raised the chair high, aiming with deadly precision and channeling its strength for the blow. It still wasn't finished with her, even though she was completely motionless. It roared, "Your last attack was really annoying. Taking careful aim." Just as Eren was about to hit the ground, the horrifying monster hurled the chair straight into her abdomen. The chair shattered to pieces on impact. For the 3rd time, Eren was subjected to its brutal force, her small back slamming hard against the wall. The impact sent debris flying everywhere. Pinned against the wall, Eren slid down, leaving a long red smear of blood in her wake. She slumped against the wall, completely drained of strength, taking ragged, shallow breaths. Cough, cough. She could no longer control her limbs. She sat trembling against the wall in a miserable heap. Eren tried to fight through the agony, thinking to herself, both of my legs are broken. Her strength and will to fight to the very end were truly admirable. Eren suppressed her pain, her eyes fixed in a defiant glare at the monster. She bit down hard to keep from crying out, thinking, "Cough, cough, but at least my arms are probably still usable." Meanwhile, Chu Yi was still playing dead, carefully observing the situation. As for the monster, when it noticed Aaron still showed signs of life, it began to approach her again, not yet ready to let her go. Chu Yi thought, not even the vice captain of the extermination squad can beat this thing. This kind of overwhelming enemy is a classic challenge in a game system survival manhwa. He had to keep playing dead. He didn't dare make a move, fearing that one more hit would be the end of him. He gritted his teeth, his mind racing. Is there anyone left who can save us? Knowing he was no match for it, Chu Yi focused on finding a way to win quickly, rather than just throwing his life away a core survival. Suddenly, he heard a voice near his ear. Hey! You! Surprised, Chu Yi shifted his eyes to the side. It was the long-haired female scientist. The woman still had a bit of strength left. Lying on the floor with her body trembling, she was trying to reach out her hand. She struggled to speak to Chu Yi, urging him to get the item to Vice Captain Aaron, so she could unleash the power held in the scientist's small hand. It was a small red stone slab. She tried to hand Chu Yi the spirit stone that she claimed could save them from this dire situation. After the scientist gave Chu Yi the small monostone to pass to Aaron, he stared at it pensively. He decisively took the red monostone. While pretending to be dead, Chu Yi secretly glanced at the monster, thinking, "This is what I have to do. How am I supposed to throw this monostone to her?" The monster, believing him to be dead, paid the protagonist of this reincarnated bug manhwa no mind. The roach god suddenly appeared and advised Chu Yi, "If you use your muscle elasticity trait right now, you still have a chance. Just follow my calculations to find an opening." It stated its assessment. Right now, the highest probability of success is only 10%. Chu Yi was shocked by this outcome and blurted out, 10% is the highest. How is that any different from certain death? The roach god warned him sternly, it's a 10% chance of survival versus a 100% chance of being killed. You choose. He gritted his teeth at those odds. In his heart, Chu Yi had already made his choice as he slowly got to his feet. Cursing "damn it" under his breath, the interface, a staple of any game system survival manhwa, chimed, activating muscle elasticity trait. Immediately, his body underwent a visible transformation. His muscles began to swell, even ripping his clothes. Chu Yi let out a powerful roar as he prepared to use all his strength. He dashed towards the monster at full speed. It seemed to sense the vibration and turned its head to look, while the roach god at his side anxiously announced, "The monster reacted faster than predicted. The probability of success has dropped to 5%. But that didn't discourage Chu Yi. He pushed himself to run even faster, putting his life on the line. At this point, all he could do was go for broke. Thanks to his elasticity, Chu Yi easily vaulted over the towering monster's head. The monster looked up at him in confusion. The roach god urgently reported, "Success rate is down to 1%. At that exact moment, he decisively threw the monostone. He silently prayed for it to work, but Aaron was still sitting motionless after her brutal fight with the monster. Even though Chu Yi had the advantage of elasticity, it wasn't enough to escape the monster. It easily grabbed him by the calf, causing Chu Yi's entire body froze. He hadn't even managed to release the monostone. The monster asked in a low voice, "What do you think you're doing?" Chu Yi was speechless, his mind reeling with panic and confusion. 0%, the roach god declared. The moment it spoke, Chu Yi was slammed by the monster and thrown violently to the ground. It slowly advanced on Chu Yi, who lay motionless on the floor. The powerful impact had caused his head to bleed profusely, and he was in agony. The monster behind him lifted its giant foot over his body, laughing with glee. Chu Yi's eyes filled with determination as he thought, "In this lit RPG apocalypse webtoon reality, who said the success rate is 0%, this is my last chance." It seemed this was all part of his plan. Chu Yi shouted loudly as he threw the stone he had been clutching tightly. The stone was thrown with perfect accuracy. At the same time, the monster stomped down hard on his body, causing the floor to crack and buckle under the force. It laughed mockingly, believing Chu Yi was dead. So weak. But then a flicker of surprise flashed in the monster's eyes. It stammered in confusion, "Something's wrong." Under its foot, a purple spiderweb, a power straight out of an insect isekai comics, had formed a shield protecting him. The monster gritted its teeth in frustration as its victory was snatched away. A spider web. It's that girl. On the other side, the purple spider web had wrapped around. A slender figure who spoke up. In this brutal world of post-apocalyptic reincarnation, you really risked your life to get that mana stone too. It's Erin enveloped in spider webs. She gratefully exclaims, "I'm so incredibly touched." Erin's hands had sprouted claws capable of controlling the webs. She used this new power straight out of a reincarnated bug manhwa to wrap the threads tight, which greatly surprised the beast. With this advantage, a classic trope in insect isekai comics, Erin easily knocked the monster over as her right arm morphed into a sharp drill-like weapon. Erin aimed her arm at the monster and yelled, "Spider's snow sword, unsheathe!" She loathed it with all her being, saying, "Monster, just die." Suddenly, a powerful force stopped her attack cold. Erin's eyes widened in shock, thinking, "What?" The monster's grip was so tight, her right arm trembled as it spoke nonchalantly. "You can use my power, human." It grabbed the sharp tip of her weapon, its voice dripping with contempt. "But it's still so weak." With just a slight squeeze, the monster snapped it in two. As the monster grabbed her by the neck, Erin was completely stunned by the turn of events. Then it used its sharp claws to impale her through the abdomen. Fresh blood sprayed everywhere. From a distance, Chu Yi struggled to his feet, seeing Erin impaled on the monster's claws. She was lifted effortlessly into the air by its grotesque arm. He himself had been beaten to a pulp by the monster, clutching his injured arm, thinking with dread, "This is it. It's really all over." This is the kind of despair you'd expect in a post-apocalyptic reincarnation story. The monster cackled triumphantly, seeing Erin go limp, and screamed as it prepared the final blow. "Die!" Suddenly, a loud slash echoed through the air. The monster shrieked in horror as both of its arms were severed by an unseen attacker, while a mysterious figure swooped in, scooped up Erin, and dashed away. The monster furiously spun around and snarled at them. Chu Yi, surprised also, looked in the direction it was facing. Heavily injured and still unconscious, Erin was being held by her rescuer fellow. At the same time, two others, a man and a woman, made their entrance. Apparently, they were fellows' teammates. The monster asked from afar, "Who are you?" The three of them confidently stood their ground, facing it directly. They were HCY Vu's and fellow. H glanced to the side and saw the scientist unconscious on the floor, immediately moving to check on her. How pitiful. Her internal organs, bones, and veins are all crushed into a pulp. H is the captain of Nightfall Squad number 10. She possesses healing abilities and summoned a jade-green magic stone, stating seriously, "I need to treat them right now." Fo, the captain of Nightfall Squad number 2, heard H and reassured her. "Don't you worry, no monster is getting past me to harm you." Grand Captain CY cracked his knuckles and spoke up. "I'll handle this. Time to have a little fun with that monster. It's strange that it can even talk." At that moment, Erin, still in Fellow's arms, regained consciousness and warned him in a faint voice, "Grand Captain, this monster, it's really different. Please be careful." CY turned back with a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'm pretty special myself." H, who was treating the two scientists, suddenly snapped, "Both of you be quiet. I need a silent space to perform the treatment." This is a classic healer trope in a game. With that, she closed her eyes, focusing on drawing power from the magic stone. From the floor, green sprouts began to emerge, piercing through the ground. Skill, the rebirth. H created a massive flower cradling the unconscious female scientist inside. She then created another flower for the other scientist. Next, Fellow gently placed the equally injured Erin onto a flower for treatment. And finally, it was Chu Yi, the only one still conscious, who stepped into his own healing flower, a scene straight out of a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. Though surprised, he trusted them and lay down thinking, "Flowers." As soon as he lay back, Chu Yi felt an incredibly soothing sensation wash over him. The unconscious state was so warm it felt like soaking in a hot spring, and in just a moment, he sank into a deep sleep. Suddenly, the cockroach god appeared angrily, warning, "Don't you pass out, I'm injecting you with adrenaline." Chu Yi was stabbed with the needle, a harsh reality in this reincarnated bug manhwa. Crying out in pain, he screamed, "It hurts so much." H, who was using healing magic, was confused to see him crying and flailing his arms. "It's not supposed to hurt." After the injection, the cockroach god looked at him with great satisfaction, ignoring Chu Yi's dazed state. "You're very lucky, young man. Open your eyes and witness the world's current top-tier fighting power." Over on the other side, Corey strode toward the massive monster. He calmly began to negotiate. "I am Corey Vuss, captain of the extermination squad. If you can understand human speech, why can't we have a conversation?" The creature snarled back, grinding its teeth. "We don't communicate with our food." After the monster's reply, the atmosphere turned eerily silent. Suddenly, from the cracks in the walls, red slime began to drip down. Corey looked up bewildered as it splattered on his face. The slime flowed more and more heavily, pooling and forming into other monstrous figures. Then it spoke. "I have devoured all of my kind who were imprisoned." "All of you will die here," it declared loudly. Immediately after, all the slime figures charged forward at once in a scene straight out of a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. They shrieked madly and rushed toward the waiting extermination squad. After the roars echoed, Chu Yi, watching from inside the healing flower, saw the sheer number of monsters and hastily warned, "There are so many monsters above, below, left, right." "They're all monsters." Fellow was now in a battle-ready stance, his entire body bulked up and muscular. His hands spun continuously, generating currents of air. In the blink of an eye, countless gusts of wind appeared, his eyes filled with murderous intent. The gusts of wind formed a powerful tornado, shredding the swarm of monsters and making them scream in agony. Fellow controlled a portion of the winds to form a barrier around the area where H was healing. Chu Yi looked up at the scene and exclaimed, "This wind, this! It's become a whirlwind shield." The monsters could only watch from the outside, no longer daring to charge in recklessly. Fellow stood guard before them, the creator of the tornado, and reported to H, who was focused on healing behind him. "Although I can hold back the monsters, I can't stop the foul stench of blood, so try to endure it." She remained absorbed in her healing task. "Given the current situation, it's acceptable. I'll forgive you, you useless oaf." Chu Yi was stunned as he witnessed it all, thinking, "Is this the true power of a captain in this game system survival manhwa?" At that moment, outside the whirlwind, only Corey stood facing the monster. It growled, "Very well, since two captains are holding me back. I'll just have to deal with you first." More viscous slime dripped down, still in the form of monstrous figures. It let out a roar, and the pile of slime immediately merged with the monster's body where it had lost its two arms. Suddenly, a plume of red smoke billowed out, obscuring his vision and preventing him from seeing what it was doing. In an instant, a ferocious roar echoed. The monster had now transformed into a form several hundred times larger than its original size. Corey was but a tiny ant before it. Chu Yi, seeing this as if struck by lightning, exclaimed in horror, "It actually has 3 transformations. That's just plain wicked." Yet standing before the colossal monster, he showed no fear. On the contrary, Corey calmly praised it. "I'm actually quite envious of you being able to change your body's size at will," he even provoked the monster. "Man, I want to get that big too. Looks like I'll need to do a lot of warm-ups." "That's more like it." The monster didn't respond to C. It just kept growling as it brought its fist down on him. Ki remained perfectly calm, effortlessly tilting his head to dodge the blow. After the successful evasion, he turned to mock it. "Whoa, that was a close one." The monster went berserk, unleashing a threatening roar from its massive maw at Sai. Reacting with incredible speed, he leaped up to evade the next punch, then ducked down to avoid being struck. Si's agile acrobatics made him an impossible target for the monster to catch. The monster was incredibly frustrated, unable to contain its rage as it cursed, "You just keep dodging and hiding like some kind of bug." Just as C was about to land, he was surprised to see a tentacle from its back shooting toward him. The monster's tentacle successfully wrapped around C's waist, catching him by surprise. It yanked hard with its tentacle, the monster's mouth widening in a triumphant grin. "You're finished now," it roared, but C showed no fear, calmly drawing the sword from his back. He unleashed a few decisive slashes, accompanied by the monster's screams. His feet touched down lightly on the ground, just as the screaming ceased. C's eyes radiated killing intent as he calmly walked past the monster's body, which he had diced into pieces in an instant, yet only its upper torso remained. The monster had an existential crisis. What just happened? It was like a boss in a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon that just got one-shotted. The monster was so terrified of C that the mere sight of his pointing finger made it tremble uncontrollably, not daring to make a sound. With a single snap of his fingers, he caused the creature's remaining body vanishing into thin air. C let out a faint smile, having dealt with it. Slimy goo dripped onto the floor. Notably, a single microorganism fell out from the goo. This appeared to be the source of the monster's ability to speak a key item in this game system's survival. He quickly snatched it. C looked at the specimen in a small vial and laughed with delight. "I got it." "I got it." He raised the vial high, cheering triumphantly. C eagerly waved to his teammates. "I've successfully captured the first talking monster in history. This is a major discovery in our post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Should I give it a name or something?" Both H and Fellow were exasperated by his words, rolling their eyes. She snapped at him, "Is this really the time for games? You should be thinking about how you're going to explain to the assembly how this brand new research institute got completely destroyed." Chu Yi, peeking out from a healing flower to watch the drama unfold, witnessed Fellow and H scold in unison. "You idiotic superior," he whispered in awe. "That's just way too powerful." At that moment, the roach god, a key figure in this reincarnated bug manhwa, appeared. It calmly asked, "Did you notice the difference? That's enough for now. You can pass out now." As soon as it finished speaking, Chu Yi's vision went completely black. By the time night had fallen in an apartment building, inside a tidy apartment, Chu Yi struggled to open his eyes, slowly regaining consciousness. Just then, he found himself soaking in a bathtub for some reason, so dazed that his face was flushed as he wondered to himself, "Where am I?" Chu Yi collected his thoughts, completely baffled as to why he was there, and cried out, "Why am I in a bathtub?" Suddenly, he sensed something was off. Glancing over, he saw something strange, the faint silhouette of a woman showering behind the curtain. Chu Yi's face turned as red as a tomato, his heart pounding violently in his chest as he screamed internally, "What in the world is happening?" While Chu Yi was panicking, the girl behind the curtain, none other than Erin, gently pulled it aside, peeking her head out. She was surprised to see him awake. "Oh, you're finally up." Erin stood casually naked in front of Chu Yi. Though not fully exposed, only a hazy veil of steam provided cover. An announcement came through since his genetic test results weren't back yet. He was required to stay for one more, but the prison is now heavily damaged, so I can only take you to my place. Chu Yi tensed up, his face beet red as he stared at her. He shyly stammered, "Do we really have to be together like this, soaking wet and completely bare?" Erin crossed her arms in annoyance and replied, "You're such a prude. Hot water is only available during this time slot. What are you going to do if you don't bathe with me?" She then formally introduced herself. "I'm Erin, Vice Captain of Extermination Squad 1. Thanks for your help back there. What's your name?" "Let's get acquainted." Chu Yi, flustered and embarrassed, replied, I guess just call me Chu Yi," Erin prompted. "Hey buddy, scoot over." With that, she swung her leg into the tub, sending a powerful splash of water everywhere. Erin then settled comfortably into the tub with Chu Yi. Even though he was sitting directly across from her, he was too embarrassed to look her in the eye. She, on the other hand, seemed to have her guard completely down around him. In fact, Erin was quite concerned about his well-being, a rare sight in this brutal game system survival manhwa. "Hey, come over here and turn around." Chu Yi's face flushed so intensely with her every touch it felt like steam was about to pour from his ears. His face burning, he thought to himself, her sense of boundaries between men and women is practically non-existent. If she keeps this up, I'm going to... After finishing her inspection, Erin's voice cut through his impure thoughts. "All right, all done. The wounds on your back are completely healed. Not even a scar is left. You've got some impressive abilities, buddy." After saying that, she gave Chu Yi a friendly pat on the shoulder, making him jump. Suddenly, the cockroach system chimed in a bizarre feature, proving this was truly a Yeet reincarnation. "I've detected your heart rate has reached 120 beats per minute. Male hormones are being released in large quantities, and blood flow is beginning to concentrate downwards. Shall I prepare reproduction mode for you?" The system's words, straight out of an insect isekai comic, hit a nerve, and Chu Yi's face turned an even deeper shade of red. He furiously rejected the offer. "No, that's not necessary." Abruptly, Aaron's voice shattered the awkward moment. "Hey, look at this wound on my chest. That monster was truly vicious." She pointed to the injury and continued. "Even though the captain healed me, it still left this scar. Here, look if you don't believe me." Chu Yi was left speechless by the scenery before him, his jaw hanging open. The system's voice rang out, reproduction mode activating. Countdown commencing 5, 4, 3. As it reached 2, he scrambled out of the tub. Chu Yi slammed the bathroom door shut, calling back, "I have something urgent to do. You go ahead and finish up." His abrupt exit left the room in silence, with Aaron still sitting stunned in the tub, completely baffled. Chu Yi leaned against the bathroom door, panting heavily. He shamefully berated his system. "If I had stayed in there one more second, I would have died of social suicide." What was that all about? System A male anchor on the news program was reporting, violent upheavals have occurred in the region surrounding Manhwa City. At a distance of approximately 50 kilometers, security bases managed by state-sponsored armed groups have also been attacked. Chu Yi stared blankly at the location on the news broadcast. It looked like the very place he used to live before his post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Is everyone dead? The news screen displayed images of the situation in Min City. The city of Hai is now completely devastated. The news anchor continued explaining that because the incident occurred so unexpectedly, by the time the extermination squad confirmed the distress signal and arrived, there were no survivors left at the small security base. Chu Yi watched the report intently, feeling a sense of relief. "If I hadn't left that place, I probably would have been killed by the monsters by now." The broadcast continued. "We once again remind all citizens that the abyss is a gateway to another world. A premise straight out of the wildest insect isekai comic. If you find any clues or notice anything unusual, please report it immediately to the proper authorities." He sat on the sofa, stunned by the news. Just then, the cockroach god appeared at the perfect moment to reassure Chu Yi. "Stop with the useless thoughts. There's no point in dwelling on what-ifs. Let me give you some good news, little fatty. That good friend you stomped to death has now been resurrected." The system, a core element in this strange game system survival manhwa, displayed Guardian King with a 100% success rate. "Summon and recall." Guardian King Chu Yi stared at the system screen, astonished, while the cockroach god hovered nearby, smiling smugly. It had cheerfully explained, "From now on, little fatty will be immortal. No matter how many times he's killed, as long as you are his master, he can be revived an unlimited number of times." Chu Yi frowned, realizing this power was a core trope of any reincarnated bug manhwa. That sounds intense, but how can a cockroach with infinite revivals possibly serve as a guardian? The cockroach god calmly explained. "Little fatty can be upgraded continuously, a key feature in this lit RPG apocalypse webtoon world. For now, his main function is to share his vision with you." Chu Yi hesitated before selecting recall. The system screen flickered with static, and the image of little fatty on it began to move. Little fatty got emotional, seeing him, exclaiming, "Awesome, big bro, I missed you so much." But the little guy was suddenly taken aback by Chu Yi's current form, and commented dejectedly, "Why are you so ugly now? Big bro, you look just like a human." Chu Yi was left speechless, unsure how to reply. The cockroach god chimed in, "You can command him to go anywhere you desire, and by simply closing your eyes, you can see through his vision." The little roach flew around the room, and Chu Yi couldn't figure out what it was up to. Suddenly, little fatty zipped under the crack of a nearby door. It turned out to be the bathroom, where it flew up to get a bird's-eye view of Aaron soaking in the tub. The moment Chu Yi realized where little fatty had gone, he remembered in horror and yelled, "Where did you go? Get out of there now!" But it turned out little fatty had flown in there on purpose, so Chu Yi could watch, and it casually replied, "But I get the feeling you wanted to take a peek, big bro." Just then, Aaron noticed little fatty's presence. She raised her hand and shot a web at it. Little fatty instantly panicked as Aaron's silk tightly ensnared it. In the blink of an eye, its body dissolved in the web, and it was sent to the great beyond. Though he was in the other room, Chu Yi witnessed the entire thing, his eyes widening in shock. A sudden nosebleed sent him reeling backward. Seeing Chu Yi pale and trembling on the floor, the cockroach god suddenly remembered something. and added awkwardly, "Oh, I forgot to mention that since you and little Fatty share sensations, if he dies, you suffer from the backlash." The next day at a table on a bustling street, a test report was slammed down. Aaron, arms crossed, informed Chu Yi, who was calmly eating breakfast. "Your test results are in. Everything's normal." He picked up the report to look it over. Then she said gently, "You're free to go." A thoughtful look flashed in Chu Yi's eyes. He placed the report on the table, stood up with a serious expression, and declared decisively, "I want to join the Annihilation Squad," fully embracing his new path in this post-apocalyptic reincarnation. Aaron was stunned by his decision and warned him, "Our mortality rate is extremely high." Chu Yi shot back, "Isn't the mortality rate for regular people already high enough?" His eyes burned with the determination of someone who'd experienced a post-apocalyptic reincarnation, as "I'm an awakened too. I've fought alongside you before, and my record is spotless. Can you please let me join?" Aaron gave him a serious once-over look and decided not to stop him any longer. "The Annihilation Squad holds tryouts once every 4 years, and the test is in 7 days, although his skills aren't bad. But rumor has it that this year will be the most intense in history." Chu Yi's brow furrowed with tension as he cautiously asked Aaron for help. "Vice Captain Aaron, please help me find a way. I don't think you're the type of person to be so shameless as to not repay the person who saved your life." Aaron stood up. Her head bowed, then looked up with an excited grin and praised him. "I admire that shameless spirit of yours. Fine, I'll give you a chance. A special training course." From a distance, someone was secretly observing their entire exchange. That person was none other than Corey. The scientist beside him asked curiously, "Commander, why did you have me falsify Chu Yi's medical report?" "The genetic test results detected something non-human," he reported with concern, a detail straight out of a reincarnated bug manhwa. But Corey offered no explanation. It seemed he had his own calculations. Corey just replied cryptically, "Let's let the bullet fly a little longer." After his talk with Aaron inside the training base, a massive circular gate stood in the center, the entrance to the divine continent. Chu Yi was brought there by her and exclaimed in shock, "What the?" Aaron remained cheerful, ignoring his furious accusations. "Your special training is to throw me straight into the abyss. Are you kidding me? The abyss is crawling with monsters, and the ones inside are on a completely different level than those on the outside. They say even a full army suffers a high mortality rate down there. How am I supposed to level up in the abyss?" This was the brutal reality of a game systems. A long list of grievances against Aaron ran through Chu Yi's mind as he pictured countless monsters with terrifying power. Power beyond imagination. With that thought, he turned to size up his future teammates. It looked like his team would consist of 4 guys and 1 girl. The tallest, most muscular one was Justin. The sole female member was named Liu Ye. The scholarly-looking young man was Su Kai, and the last one, who looked a bit childish, was Song Tao. Aaron finally spoke up. "The abyss. This is a place filled with countless chasms created by giant insects during the catastrophe, a setting straight out of the darkest." She continued her explanation. "Each abyss is connected to a different world. Depending on the degree of spatial collapse, they're ranked from E to S class, just like in a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. Naturally, E-class is the easiest to handle, while Aaron warned, the higher the rank, the stronger the monsters lurking within, and the more difficult the corresponding dimension becomes. By passing through this dimensional gate, you can enter the abysses that the Annihilation Squad has already explored." Aaron gestured to the Divine Continent gate behind her and casually tapped on its control panel. The screen beeped in response. Aaron smiled faintly and said, "The Annihilation Squad's mission is to enter the abyss and eliminate the monsters inside, preventing invasions from other worlds from becoming a reality." She held up her red magic stone as an example. "Killing monsters in the abyss will help your weapons. Our mana stones to develop." Aaron pressed the screen to activate the door, and the Divine Continent gate slowly opened. She stood confidently before the gate with her arms crossed, announcing that the Divine Continent gate was open. Aaron then commanded Justin, "You have the most experience in the abyss, so you will be the captain leading the entire team." Justin seriously accepted the mission, replying, "Understood." In a forest behind the gate, the Abyss Annihilation training team moved into the silent forest, which had a danger level of E rank. At that moment, the 5 of them were transported to the middle of the forest, unable to get their bearings. Since this was Chu Yi's first time, he was astonished. "Oh my god, so this is the abyss!" Suddenly, a snake-tailed monkey monster, sensing the human's presence, appeared like a creature. He saw it in a tree and exclaimed in surprise, "Is that really a snake-tailed monkey?" On another side, a giant spider emerged, startling Chu Yi. "That spider is huge." He looked around, his mouth agape in awe. "The trees are so big, they're incredibly tall." Chu Yi ran around the forest exploring, leaving the entire Abyss Annihilation training team speechless. Are we still on Earth? Stepping through that gate felt like a true post-apocalyptic reincarnation into another world. This forest lived up to its name. It was completely silent. The team was led by Justin, with Chu Yi at the very back when Justin suddenly turned around. Justin threw his bag at Chu Yi, who caught it with a bewildered look. Then he warned, "Listen up, you little punk. You are not allowed to touch any monsters in the abyss. All you have to do is follow us and carry our luggage." Chu Yi looked at him, confused. Inside, Justin was burning with jealousy for the boy. Did this kid really spend the night with Instructor Aaron? "Damn it, who gave you permission to make a move on my goddess?" Hearing this, Chu Yi's expression darkened. His attitude angered Justin, who frowned and asked, "What's with that look?" "You don't want to do it." But contrary to his expectations, Chu Yi beamed, as this was exactly what he wanted. "Awesome. I promise I won't touch a single monster. I'll be a diligent support member." Justin was baffled by his cheerful mood and words. Internally, Chu Yi was celebrating with relief, thinking, "This is perfect, I'm safe now." Justin was a bit stunned, muttering, "This kid must have a screw loose." Chu Yi happily waved towards Sukai and Song Tao, sucking up to them. "Big bros, give all your backpacks to me." He cheerfully walked over to Liu Ye. "Let me take your bag." Before Chu Yi could finish his sentence, she immediately refused. "No need, I'll carry it myself." He was incredibly pleased with such a simple job. As a seemingly normal person, a classic trope in any reincarnated bug manhwa, I understood why I was forbidden from hunting. What could possibly go wrong for me? That was my thought until I saw the awakened ability users fighting in the abyss. A scene worthy of a lit RPG. A moment later, Liu Ye activated her ability, and her entire body was enveloped in bolts of lightning. She used her skill Heavenly Thunder's Fury, electrocuting the surrounding monsters, which shrieked in agony. Elsewhere, Justin's eyes were filled with killing intent. He yelled, "Die!" and immediately swung the sword in his hand. The monsters were sliced in half. Hiding in a corner, Chu Yi watched them fight the monsters, thinking, "So that's a mana stone weapon." When you kill a monster in the abyss, the weapon can absorb the supernatural power from that monster, just like in this game system survival manhwa. Right now, Liu Ye raised the scepter in her hand, absorbing all the power from the immobilized snake-tailed monkey on the ground. Or like Justin, who was now using his sword to absorb the monster's power after slaughtering them. This sight made Chu Yi. Chu Yi was reminded of grinding for experience points in games, a classic trope in any lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. The more monsters they killed, the faster they leveled up. About an hour later, even the most outstanding awakened members of the training squad were feeling utterly exhausted from the constant monster grinding. Justin, leaning on his energy-absorbing sword, was panting heavily. He looked at his sword and whispered, "Killed 300 of them, and I've finally leveled up." From a distance, Chu Yi watched Justin, thinking, "But I'm different." He smiled, tucking a white napkin into his collar, and skillfully used a knife and fork to slice a piece of snake-tailed monkey meat. Then Chu Yi opened his mouth and savored it leisurely, as if he were on vacation. A system notification suddenly popped up. "Long-armed snake monkey." But he seemed unfazed, completely engrossed in savoring his delicious meal. "All I have to do is eat a piece of a monster's meat to acquire its traits. A unique skill in this game system survival manhwa, regardless of whether I killed it or not." Just by eating it, Chu Yi could still get that perk. He took another bite, and the notification chimed again. Ability acquired. Poison resistance. Poison resistance, a recommended ability. Chu Yi ate one piece after another, and the system announced again. Ability acquired, jungle adaptation. Jungle adaptation, a recommended ability. The notifications kept popping up one after another. New ability acquired, sunlight. Chu Yi sighed, rubbing his belly, which was so full it strained against his shirt. He lay around lazily after finishing all the meat, leaving only scattered bones behind. Chu Yi closed his eyes to rest, thinking to himself, "I've made up my mind. Even if I join the extermination squad, I'll be in charge of logistics. It's great watching others work so hard while I can just leisurely get stronger by eating." The cockroach. God smugly declared, "Hurry and praise my greatness," a fitting line for a reincarnated bug manhwa. Chu Yi shouted with glee, "All hail the cockroach god," a scene straight out of... The members of the Kinapsis training squad were baffled by Chu Yi's bizarre behavior. They were all annoyed, sharing the same thought. What the hell is he doing? While everyone's busting their butts, killing monsters, he's just casually having a feast. Early the next morning, a strange aura suddenly emanated from the silent forest. The thunderous sound of heavy footsteps shattered the tranquility of the woods. It was the sound of a horned beast, a monster from deep within the forest, ferociously chasing after something. It turned out to be charging at a snake-tailed monkey. The snake-tailed Monkey King showed no fear, roaring back even louder. But in the end, the horned beast easily bit down on the monkey's head and flung it into the air. Chu Yi, hiding behind a nearby rock formation, witnessed the whole thing in astonishment. He gasped in shock. "That's the final boss of the silent forest, the horned beast. No wonder it could so easily defeat the night-level snake-tailed Monkey King." Even though it was only half a level below the horned beast, the power gap was immense. Justin, who was standing calmly beside him, suddenly spoke up. "We can win this, as long as everyone follows my plan. We're the rookie team that's going to take down this boss." In a classic post-apocalyptic reincarnation move, Chu Yi's expression tensed, his eyes filled with doubt. He recalled Aaron's warning before they left, "You'll be violating the rules if you challenge a boss without authorization. Any injuries, disabilities, or deaths that result won't be covered by medical insurance." Chu Yi quickly tried to talk Justin out of it. "Didn't Aaron forbid us from fighting the boss? I'm not taking part in this," hearing him object. Justin grabbed him by the collar and yelled, "It's not your place to worry about this, you useless piece of trash. Get back to the safe zone and watch the bags now. Our group will be fine." Liu Ye, standing behind, remained silent, but she was also mulling over Chu Yi's warnings. Justin opened the map, pointed to a circled location, and told him, "Just sit tight right here, got it." Unable to persuade them, Chu Yi had to split from the team. Justin, holding several bags, replied, "Okay, good luck to you all." Both Sukai and Song Tao were inwardly celebrating, their faces showing a cunning expression that hinted at a hidden agenda. Just then, Liu Ye cautiously asked, "Captain, isn't the location you sent him to the same place we're planning to ambush the boss?" Justin, having successfully deceived Chu Yi, wore a smug grin and casually replied, "That's right. I stuffed the 4 bags Chu Yi is carrying full of explosives. The moment the boss targets Chu Yi, I'll detonate them immediately." He had devised this wicked plan against him purely out of jealousy. Even though Liu Ye disliked him, seeing Chu Yi get played by Justin like this made her indignant. "You're despicable." Suddenly, her eyes widened in horror. Justin's face darkened as he pressed a knife to Liu Ye's throat, leaving Sukai and Song Tao completely stunned. He scowled, his eyes glaring as he threatened in a low voice, "Ditch that bleeding heart of yours. My patience is wearing thin, so I'll let this insult slide for now." A while later in the safe zone, Chu Yi had arrived and was busy examining a monster's corpse. Suddenly, a massive tremor echoed, causing his eyes to widen in alarm. Chu Yi frantically wondered, "Is the battle over there that intense? The sound is carrying all the way here." He stood before the pitch-black forest, his heart pounding with caution. Chu Yi was startled to feel movement getting closer and closer. Something was heading this way. Shapes zipped past him. A closer look revealed they were snake-tailed monkeys frantically stampeding as if fleeing something terrifying, making it hard for him to see clearly. Chu Yi's eyes followed the horde of monsters, a sense of doubt creeping in. In the next instant, a tree was violently knocked over. He immediately whipped his head around toward the source of the sound. Chu Yi was horrified to see the boss monster, a horned beast, charging right at him. The horn on its head pierced straight through his abdomen as the boss charged. Chu Yi immediately coughed up a mouthful of bright red blood. The horned beast was relentless, plowing straight through massive tree trunks. It ran without tiring until it slammed head first into a rocky mountainside. By then, blood was pouring from Chu Yi's nose and his mind reeled with questions. A boss. Why is it all the way out here? He struggled to open his eyes through the pain. Just then, the cockroach god appeared, scolding Chu Yi. When you realize you're seriously injured, you're supposed to push the foreign object out of your body and start healing. But then it noticed something odd, coughed dryly a few times, and asked, "Where are your teammates? Are they all dead?" Out of nowhere, a flaming arrow shot through the air, aimed with perfect precision, striking the bag of explosives right next to the boss that was still impaling Chu Yi. He watched the fuse on the explosives begin to burn and thought in a daze, "A flare that was inside the bags my teammates gave me." Chu Yi's eyes locked onto it. "Are those explosives?" Looking closer, Chu Yi finally understood. The sound of the detonation roared, followed by a blinding flash of light, and he knew no more. All Chu Yi could see was pitch-black darkness, and a sense of despair washed over him. "It looks like I've been betrayed by my teammates once again." Used as bait to lure out the monster. The 4-person squad from the Kinap training team watched the massive explosion from a distance. Not far off, Justin, the leader, let out a loud, gloating laugh, looking completely triumphant. Young Zaid said smugly, "Did you guys see the stupid look on that beast's face at the end? It was hilarious. After the explosion dies down, we'll go finish off the low HP boss monster. Talk about killing 2 birds with 1 stone." Liu Ye seemed to notice something was off. She hurried over, pointed and shouted, "Captain, look!" Justin was utterly shocked by the sight below. As the explosion subsided, the smoke gradually dissipated. Through the haze, the silhouettes of a person and a beast could be seen, and that person was none other than Chu Yi. He had survived that terrifying explosion. Justin was stunned and yelled, "What? How could he still be alive?" After the blast, Chu Yi looked even more built, forcefully shoving the monster's horn out of his body. As he pulled the horn free, his entire body trembled uncontrollably from the excruciating pain. Yet the wound from the horn instantly healed, leaving no trace. A classic trait in a lit RPG apocalypse webtoon. And he yelled at Justin's group, "Do you people really think?" As he spoke, he summoned immense strength and hoisted the boss monster into the air. Justin watched in horror, gritting his teeth as Chu Yi finished his sentence. "That I'm some kind of pushover." Having said that, Chu Yi hurled the boss monster up to their position. Let's flash back to the moment just before Chu Yi threw the horned beast. Regaining his composure, Chu Yi growled, "What grudge do you have against me? This is our first meeting, and you're already trying to kill me." His eyes were now filled with pure hatred. A notification from the game system, a staple of any game system survival Manhwa, chimed in, "Long arm activated." Instantly, veins popped all over Chu Yi's body as he used all his might to push the horned beast's horn out of his stomach. The arms of the serpent-tailed ape can lift objects tens of thousands of times its own weight. He easily extracted the horn, though his body couldn't help but shake. Simultaneously, his jungle adaptation skill activated. Since the current environment is a forest, the effectiveness of the user's activated abilities is enhanced. The system chimed in again, "Sunlight skill activated. It is currently daytime and the user has activated." The effect enhancing the ability. Chu Yi powerfully hoisted the beast over his head. Justin ground his teeth in frustration, his face tensing as he watched from his vantage point. At that moment, the boss monster Chu Yi had thrown was hurtling toward their position. The horned beast slammed into the ground, creating a massive shockwave that sent dust and debris flying everywhere. Justin clenched his jaw, raising an arm to shield himself from the debris. As the dust settled, a hand suddenly reached out and a weak voice called, "Captain, help!" "Help me," it was Song Tao. He was pinned from the waist down by the massive horned beast, completely immobilized. Shaking violently in agony, the rest of the group cried out in unison upon seeing his state, "Song Tao." Justin drew his sword and yelled, "There's no saving him if you don't want to die. Focus on taking down this boss monster." He then aimed his sword at the desperately pleading Song Tao, who begged, No, please don't." Justin ruthlessly unleashed a skill on his own trapped teammate, Flesh Explosion Arrow. Immediately, grotesque tumors erupted on Song Tao's face, making him scream in agony. Justin cruelly pushed the skill further. Swell up! In the blink of an eye, just as his horrifying scream faded, Song Tao's entire body exploded. A pool of blood and gore was all that remained of him under the boss monster. The brutal reality of this post-apocalyptic reincarnation was that the explosion successful. The beast rose to its feet, letting out a ferocious roar. An enraged Justin urged the other two on his team. "What are you just standing there gawking for attack?" Liu Ye and Sukai's expressions turned serious as they readied their abilities. Sukai let out a battle cry and charged forward, thrusting his flaming fist toward it. Instantly, a powerful vortex of fire slammed into the boss monster. On the other side, Liu Ye also charged in, aiming a fist crackling with lightning at the creature, which roared even louder as electricity coursed through its body. The horned beast shrieked in pain, growing even more ferocious. Justin yelled from the side, "It's about to go down!" He scoffed at its struggle, thinking to himself, "This boss monster isn't as legendary as they say, is it? Makes sense. If that useless punk could toss it around like a ball, how strong could it really be?" Justin yelled at the boss monster, which was now wreathed in fire and lightning, struggling with each step. "Go back to hell, you filthy animal." The boss monster's growl deepened, its eyes growing even more savage. It reared up, and a protective shield seemed to emanate from its horn. The horn began to absorb all of Liu Ye's lightning and Sukai's fire. She cried out in horror, "It's no use. This horned beast is absorbing all of our energy. Stop attacking with your abilities." The more they attacked, the stronger it got. As the boss monster advanced on them, fear finally crept into Justin's heart. Panic flooded his mind. "No, this is impossible. We can't beat it. It's too strong." He glanced at Sukai and Liu Ye in front of him, and an idea suddenly struck him. A wicked smile spread across Justin's face as he suddenly struck the back of Sukai's neck. Caught completely off guard, he exclaimed, "Captain," before quickly losing consciousness and collapsing to the ground. Liu Ye, horrified and pale, stammered, "Justin." He didn't spare her just because she was a woman. The inhuman bastard landed a powerful punch to Liu Ye's stomach. Justin looked down at the two on the ground and spoke callously. "Who gave you permission to get in my way? Might as well make use of some dead weight before I go." "You should be thanking me." With that, he fled. The boss monster lumbered toward the two abandoned teammates. Its massive foreleg lifted, aiming right for Sukai. The monster brought it down decisively, causing a gruesome splatter of blood and gore. Naturally, Liu Ye was its next target. It brought its foot down without hesitation, and just when it seemed she was done for, Chu Yi swooped in and carried her to safety. He had just saved her life. As he held her, she dazedly asked, "Why did you only save me?" Chu Yi looked at the woman in his arms and answered calmly, "Because you were the only one who didn't bully me or make me carry the bags." This incident dredged up memories from Chu Yi's past of being abandoned simply because he was weak. "In my past life, I was treated as a sacrifice. Now in this reincarnated bug manhwa reality, I'm a cockroach. Even so, my weakness led to a bigger roach forcing me to clear. This time, I haven't made enemies with anyone yet. I'm still being used and plotted against. In this world, only the strong have the right to decide their own fate in this brutal game system survival manhwa. That's why I must become stronger." Chu Yi's resolve hardened. A stammering, pleading voice called out, "Chu Yi, please. Hey, help. Help me." The voice belonged to Justin, whose face was drained of all color. As the monster's claw was about to come down on him, Chu Yi sarcastically repeated Justin's own words back to him. "Not even a single monster is allowed to touch me." "Isn't that what you said, Captain Justin?" Chu Yi savored the moment, gloating at Justin's predicament. Justin's face twisted in helpless desperation. Before he could even finish his sentence, the boss monster's foot came crashing down. "That's not..." Saying Justin's condition was no different from their two dead teammates. Chu Yi calmly observed everything. The system in this game system survival manhwa announced the activation of his hypnotic pollen skill. Chu Yi raised his hand in front of Liu Ye, and the pollen began to spread out before her. The pollen of the tranquility flower, when inhaled in large amounts, would render a person unconscious. He gently laid the unconscious Liu Ye down, thinking it was best to keep this monstrous ability from his post-apocalyptic reincarnation, a secret from her for now. Chu Yi glanced at the boss monster and said, "Now it's just the two of us." The ferocious monster, a beast worthy of any insect isekai comic, stared right at him, but he felt no fear. Instead, he grew excited and shouted, "I will use you as a stepping stone to become even stronger."